And good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
I'm Phil Lichtenberger.
And this is the Scanner Guys tonight. And good evening, everybody. This is the first time that we've had a guest on. So this is a really exciting evening for us. How's everybody doing tonight?
Absolutely wonderful.
And how about you, Phil?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be your first guest. It's an honor.
Yeah, so this is going to be quite a great show that we have prepared for tonight. Let's kick it off. So tonight we have Phil as our guest, and many of you may know him from the Scanner School. He hosts a weekly podcast, everything about scanners. So, and Phil, you've been doing this for how long?
We launched the podcast January 2nd, 2018. So it's been a while. We've been doing this every week. So haven't missed a week yet. Getting close to it, but
that's a long time in this business.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yes, yeah. The only benefit I have over you guys is the fact that I can pre-record my stuff and then cue it all up.
Yeah.
So
versus
it makes it a little bit easier.
Us, doing this live and occasionally saying things that may make us chuckle. I could think of one that Rich mentioned last week about the three of us being on the show together.
Yes.
Yeah. The Scanner Guys' first threesome. Gotta say it,
And I gotta say too, I already messed up already because I was going to come on the podcast. I was going to say, Jameson and Rob, thank you so much for having me on the Scanner Guys. I appreciate being here, but I blew my chance. So.
No worries, Paul. Have a good.
Yeah. So tonight we don't.
Now I can get rid of that cue card.
We don't have a slideshow this evening, so you're going to be the center.
I'm the entertainment.
Yeah, you're the entertainment. So
okay.
So this is going to be a really good broadcast. We're going to get to know you. We were just on your podcast yesterday, and so you were asking us all the questions, and you were in the interviewer's seat. And now Rich and I are now in the interviewer's seat. So this should be really interesting. We'll ask some hard-hitting questions. I'm sure Rich has written several hard-hitting questions.
Oh, yeah. Be prepared.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I have a two-part question for you. What got you into this hobby, and how long have you been doing it?
So I'll answer that as a one-parter. I've been in the hobby pretty much since I could crawl, basically. It has always been a memory to me. So I remember growing up as a kid, and my dad worked in a marine radio shop in Freeport, New York, which is down they call it the Nautical Miles, was where he was. Mm-hmm. And he had a background before that with CBs at the time. We had to have a license to get on the CB. He was into amateur radio and all that stuff. And he, growing up, there was always some sort of scanner or two-way radio on in the house at all times. When I went with my grandparents' house, I remember being a kid and running around the house at their house, and they always had the Electro Bearcat 101 going. So again, my earliest memory is seeing the little red lights moving back and forth on the screen. And again, some of the older Radio Shack gear that used to be out, and there was always a radio on my dad's nightstand. There was always one in the kitchen type of deal. Always something in the car. So I was brought up with it. So for me not to get into the hobby, I think would have been impossible. So again, my earliest memory was always, playing around with my dad's radios or accidentally reprogramming them by mistake, zero enter. Oops.
Oops.
So doing that. And in fact, I was actually going to grab my first scanners on the other side of the room here. I was actually going to grab it so I'd have it sitting here, but he kind of handed down to me a scanner. It was a Fanon Slimcom. So it was like a 6-channel Fanon handheld scanner. And for me, it worked great. I mean, that was one of the greatest things. And of course, playing around as a kid with it. Not only did I use it to listen to the local fire and the local police, and it had crystals in it, which was cool. And you'd sit there and you'd move the crystals around between the low, the medium, and the high spot to see if you can bring in different frequencies with that. And lots of time going through dusty old baby food jars that my dad had old crystals in. So I'd spend, what's this one? What's this one? What's this one? Then you try and look up the frequency, or you pop them in and see what you can hear. So, since basically I could crawl, and I was forced into the hobby.
Yeah, so you were basically surrounded by it. There was no way to avoid it. And then of course, you were a kid and you were curious. I totally get that. For me, my dad gave me my first scanner, so I was hooked, when I was at a young age, about 10 years old. Rich, you had your dad that worked, and you wanted to listen to him.
Yeah, my dad was a policeman in the little town that I grew up in, and so he bought me a scanner so I can listen to him at night when he's out running around in the street, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, all three of us were introduced into this hobby when we were kids.
Yeah,
right.
Just to think of it now, if we were in the hobby as kids now and we needed a digital radio, it was a lot more expensive now to be able to get in this hobby, versus way back when, it still was expensive, but it was,
right. Well, I'm gonna kind of argue with that one, because I love this discussion, and we can go right into it from here if you want. But
yeah, sure.
We've all heard it. Why do scanners cost so much now? I can't believe it. $650 for an SDS 200. Yes, but 20 years ago, when the Uniden BC 780 XLT came out, what did that cost? Like $350?
500,
right?
500, yes.
Was it 500 really when it came out? All right,
yeah,
$499.95. Yeah.
So I remember this, electronics.
It did Motorola. Did it do LTR? I know it did EDAX, right?
Yeah.
And it did analog. Yeah. It's 500 channels.
Right.
You account for inflation, 20 years worth of inflation. And I did the math at $350, and it cost more in $2,000 than it does now for an SDS 200.
Yeah,
you look
the
at
relative
the Pro 2006 and all that stuff. Yeah, relative prices.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
the dollars are more now, but financially it hurts a lot less now than it did 20, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
well, we get that from people all the time. Wow, I can't figure spending $700 on an SDS 200, but you compare that to the 780, which was the top of the line back then, and that was probably at least $1,000 in today's dollars. I remember I scrimped and saved it. I was working full time as a police officer at the time, and I couldn't afford one.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I only have my the SDS 100 and 200, which are the models that we got because we beta tested it.
Yeah,
and it's just I would love to have another 200, but it's it is what it is. But I just but I'm just thinking in the general sense, when we all got in the hobby, there was no trunking, there was no digital. Right. I mean, you think of it was very basic communications for the most part. I mean, look at through the three of us. We've lived through all of it. We lived through the trunking age.
Yeah. And going to 800, going to the 800 band originally, then going to trunking, then going to digital, and then going to P25. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Don't forget the rebanding process too.
Too,
and
yeah.
The rebanding process,
and then narrow banding, banding was even worse.
Yeah. But when they did the whole hybrid too, when they would start harvesting a couple of channels and reband half the system or a quarter of it, and they move the next week, and you're constantly trying to figure out, now I have to redo the tables all over again. Why can't they make it simple?
Yeah.
But there's when you think about everything that's been going on in how many years, and again I'm late to the game considering a lot of the people who listen to the podcast and get feedback from, and they say, I had to wait for the tubes to warm up. before I start to listen to it, right? I have a guest coming on the podcast next week, and we started, what got you involved? It's always my first question, just like you asked me.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've always had a radio in the house, and I'd come home and I'd turn on the radio and I'd wait 15 minutes, so that everything would warm up and it would work. And it's like,
oh yeah,
that's a lot different. And again, too, I missed the days of what was that scanner that had the index card that you'd punch out the holes in and you line it in there.
Yeah.
So
the
I missed out on
memory
that.
scan. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even the Optocom phase, I was kind of out of the hobby at that time when you'd modify the Pro with 2004s or 2006s and you throw the Opto board in there and you'd run probe or stuff like that. I mean, that was that would have been a really cool phase to be
crystals,
in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
I started when it was all crystal scanners, and anything to get away from having to get a crystal for every channel.
Right.
When the 210 XLT with a keyboard as well, that was just like, wow!
Oh my God! It's I mean, it's crazy. The way things have changed. I wasn't really involved in a lot of the crystal part of the. I got in towards the tail end of the 1980s. So I guess apparently we're the youngsters and Rich.
Yeah. I need my
What about you, Grandpa? Yeah.
So I guess we'll go to the next question. Since we're talking about scanners, which the whole show is about scanners, what is your favorite all-time scanner and why?
That's a good one. That's something I like to think about because I feel like I'm at the point now where I don't want to offend, right? The wrong scanner, but I've got the disease, right? And I'm sure you guys have it too, right? When new scanner comes out, you've got to have it. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
except you put yours on display. Mine, unfortunately, are stuck, in Tupperware things that are underneath the desk, so they don't get ruined. By sitting dormant. You got yours plugged in and they're being used. But it's one of these things. Like I have, my 780. You have to love that radio just because it's the 780. It's even looking at it now. You have it turned on, and there's just something about looking at that and seeing the display in that one, going, "That's a cool display." Like it doesn't turn colors. It doesn't light up funny. I mean, even here, I'm gonna show you this. So, and to show you how much I like the older unit and stuff. So I've got my 200. I mean, my STS 100, and I'm gonna wait for it to load up here.
Yeah, it goes
even
back
with
to
all
the
the colors.
Days. You got to wait for the SDS to load up.
I have the old unit in. So, I mean, even with the new stuff, you still want to go for the old stuff. So, the 780 XL2 was cool. The 785 when I went over to that one with the digital chip in that one. I mean, being able to listen to, again, it wasn't much P25, but I still use it. As the Coast Guard is still, P25 and it doesn't work on rebanding, but it still serves a purpose. I love the 536 to 436 because I like the 5. It was great. I mean, that long display on there that would show you more information than you've ever seen on a scanner that wasn't interfaced with a piece of software, right? I mean, because if you plugged in the software, okay, you can get more text on a display, but and again, I think each scanner, I think when I use them, I think each one serves a purpose, right? I have my stuff set up where it's certain scanners do certain jobs. So I've got one scanner set up just for this police department here, and that's running on a 785 because it doesn't really need to be anything. Or no, it's 785 without the card in it. Then I have a BCT 15 running something else. Then I have a 996 running something else. Then I've got, the 536 doing something else. The 436 has been my go-to radio when I want to grab a scanner and go. Because that one I've completely upgraded with the DMR and the NXDN, and there's no Pro Voice out here. But again, too, every once in a while, though, I mean, I did a podcast episode on it. My BC 200 XLT, why I love that radio. I mean, that was one of the first radios that I bought myself, type of thing. So again, it was used, and I had a paper route, and I saved my money up, and I was amateur radio at the time. We had bought one for my dad, So I already knew how to use it. It was cool. My uncle had one as well. And, there was a swap and shop net I was listening to on the local 2-meter machine, and somebody listed one up, and right away I jumped on the phone and said, hey, will you take, I don't know, $200 for it, whatever it was. Right. I mean, and I'm like, Dad, can we go? And, so, I mean, each radio kind of brings in a different piece. And again, I like the way the sound is on the Whistler line, right? You can't, I mean, you guys talked about it last week with the Whistler radios and how you wish they had phase 2. I mean, you turn one of them on and the speaker to me sounds so much better on a Whistler than it does on a Uniden.
Yeah.
Plus, again, the object-oriented scanning on a Whistler is, like you were saying, until you get the heap error. And then you want to rip your hair out.
The things that you love or you hate,
Yeah, exactly. So I think each radio is. I guess I don't have a favorite. It's just everyone is. It's like a kid, right? Everyone's special in their own little way.
Yeah. So Rich, you wrote a follow-up question to this.
Yeah. Is there any particular scanner you don't like?
Oh,
might be kind of loaded,
does
but
count.
Well, I mean, I've got one, the Pro 2026. Yeah. I hated that scanner. They took they took a Bearcat 760 and took all the good features out of it and sold it as a 2026, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
I had what did I have that was like that? I was gonna say the Baofungs, but they're not really scanners. They're just pains in the neck.
Yeah.
Well, let's do a new one that's out there now that I really just don't like, and I don't understand. Is the I'm looking because I always say the number wrong. The SR30C. What's the point?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Okay, it's an entry-level scanner. It does, was it 500 channels, I think is what they put in it now, and there's no alpha tags, there's no PL, it's just straight up numbers. But when you go looking at that to the 125, and not to say, it's the wrong scanner for somebody to buy, because no, it's the perfect scanner for somebody who needs analog.
Yeah.
But for the extra couple dollars difference, I don't see why they went with putting this out and not maybe sunsetting the 75 XLT line and just getting everybody into the 125. I mean, for the couple dollar difference, I think that makes a lot more sense.
And how did they come up with a name on that?
Yeah, I mean, Scanner Radio 30 Compact or Scanner Radio 30, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think some of the old Pro lines I don't like the old, and again, it falls back to Geo. Like the 404 never made any sense to me either. It was just, the old brick style. I never really liked those. But again, they were okay radio. Oh, there you go. The Pro 96. I didn't like that one. And the 2096.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a 2096 that, if I ever need to throw a hammer at something, that will be the radio to get it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My radio like that, the one I used for a tire chalk was a Pro 94. I despised that radio and the programming. And then they came out with the Pro 95, and it was pretty much the same radio, but it worked so much better.
I had one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got two of those.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well, you're a collector.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That would be the radio that if you asked me, I'm such a 125 AT fan. Like, it doesn't make any sense why Uniden would come out with a brand new radio that didn't incorporate the alpha tagging, didn't incorporate PL tone capability. It just, I'm just baffled by it. Why? I mean, the 125 AT, and then they were actually, what was it, last year? They were actually rumoring it that they were gonna retire the 125 AT. And I was with a shipping manager, which does our ordering. He's the one that told me, Dave. And I'm like, they're nuts.
Yeah.
Why the heck would you discontinue the 125 AT? You come out with this new radio that doesn't offer the PL tone or the alpha tagging or anything. I'm like, that's my favorite radio. Why are you going to do that?
Well, I mean, I guess it'd be the same reason why they retired the 346 XT or the XTC, right? The California version of that.
Yes. Right.
And they never replaced it with anything. So now you've got somebody who's getting into scanning and they want a handheld radio, and they can either get in at the SR30C level now or the 75 XLT, right? Whatever. Mm-hmm. The 125 AT. So you're sitting around $100. Now all of a sudden you're at the 350 level. Yep, there's nothing in the middle. There's nothing there.
Right up.
Yeah.
And then Whistler is the same boat, though. Whistler is, you can come in here and you can get a basic non-trunking scanner, or you can go straight into P25 phase 1. There's nothing.
I can understand that link, because there's very few EDAX or Motorola trunking systems anymore, and if they're still there, they're being converted to P25 anyway. So I can see the leap with a small digital scanner from that, but they need to have a good analog scanner, but you don't really need analog trunking. So keep the 125, get rid of the 30 or whatever the heck they're going to nickname it. And, so you have the 125, then you have the digitals, and then you have the fancy ones.
The high end. Yep.
The Cadillacs of.
Go from Yugo to Chevrolet to Cadillac.
Leave out Ford, I guess.
Where's the Adobe? Remember that commercial from Saturday Night Live? The Adobe, you crash into a wall and you can mold it back. Clay.
Wow. But yeah, I'm just amazed by, I mean, what was, I guess we can say this, on the low end unit and base radios, CRS, you had,
can't receive stuff. Yeah.
So that's one of the radios. I've never owned one of those. I almost bought one, but I mean, I've used them. I've programmed them up for people, because it's kind of was the natural progression for me, was to kind of get into the scanner programming side of the business. And I don't know. It was okay. It was a novelty item to me, I think, is the way I saw it. Like, do I really need a clock radio that also scans? I mean, and I'm looking at it like, all right, it would free up, I wouldn't need my alarm clock and I wouldn't need to put the radio next to it. So I could see the market, but I don't know, to me, it was very like, a novelty thing, but they kept releasing brand new ones. They would keep coming up the next one, the next one, the next one. And they're polished up. I mean, they it's nice with little tiny buttons on it. I wish they didn't rotate so much as you push the buttons in. I mean, they could have at least made it so that, it was some sort of firm push button, but there's some interesting. I mean, I even have up in the attic, talking about strange scanners. I got one of the old Uniden 8-track scanners with the 4 crystals in it. You throw it in the 8-track player.
Yeah, I bought one of those for my dad back in the day, and he loved that thing. It was great. Yeah, that was back when the state police were still on low band, and you put a couple of low band frequencies in, it worked really well.
Yep.
And how about, we sell a lot of these, and Rich and I are always scratching our head. The 350, the 355s, are still a very popular radio. No keypad, bit of a pain to program.
Oh, a little bit, huh?
Yeah. I'll be nice.
And they were intended as a service search radio, but that stuff doesn't work anymore these days, No. But they still buy them, and reasons are little.
Yeah, I mean, I had the BCT7 and then the 350, the 355, and I was buying them too because, back at that point when the ones that had the 800 in them, I forget which one it was exactly that had it, but they were pretty simple to tap into and put the discriminator taps. Yep, you can discriminator tap them pretty easily, and that was it. That's why I was buying them for, because they were small footprint. I can run a couple of them, and I can run them into the early days when you had to discriminator tap them and run Unitrunker that way. And
who uses those things a lot? Those 355 type scanners. Do you know it used to be Plectrons, and now there's a company called Vtronics. They make the alert receivers. Those Vtronics,
right?
Yeah. Well, Vtronics. They're out in Nebraska, and they're a lot of the same people that used to work for Plectron, and they make alert receivers out of them. And they take the front panel off, they put the alert receiving circuitry in there, and program it up with the frequency, and they sell them as alert receivers, very similar to what the Plectrons.
I've seen them too. Those radios. Somebody makes like an all-in-one streaming box, where they deliver the radio, mag mount antenna, and a little microform PC. And I was delivering pagers to a customer of mine, and on his desk was one of those 355s with, just in the computer. And I'm like, what is that? Yeah. He's like, oh, this is our live feed that we bought through some, whatever company it was. So
Yeah, so there's a market for that kind of stuff out there, other than just the individual consumer. And we've got a retail store down in the Southeast that buys these 365s by the case from us, and then he resells them in his store. And they work in that area because they're all analog, but his customers love them.
So, as far as we know, you're the only podcast that's dedicated to the scanner hobby out there. Is that right?
As far as I know, yeah. That was the big motivation for me to do the podcast. I like to listen to podcasting, and I also like to teach about scanner radios. Being that, like I said, I was programming scanners for people. I have a website that I run locally. And I'd feel a lot of the same questions, over and over and over again. And it never bothered me that people were asking the same questions. And then I was asked to speak. There's a ham radio forum that happens every year on Long Island. It's called Ham Radio University. And I was asked to do a scanner radio, an intro session for Long Island scanning. And the class was packed, and it went all down the hallway too. It was unbelievable how many people actually showed up to hear me talk about scanning on Long Island. And eventually I split into two, an intro class and a more advanced class. And then I went back into just a single class because, more and more forums were coming up with SDRs or, D-Star and other types of topics that are being brought up. But every year I come back and it's always a full room. So it was kind of like validating for me, like, okay, if I did a podcast, I would love to do this because I'd love to teach more people about the hobby and answer questions. And the same reason what drives you guys to do this YouTube thing. And when I was researching, I said, okay, let me see what's out there. And of course you look at ham radio and there's, 24 podcasts on ham radio. And then I typed in scanner and nothing came up. And I'm like, interesting. So I it's one of these things. So you think about it. And the little voice to my said goes, do it now, because if you wait, somebody else is going to do it. So that was the driving force for me to come in and do the podcast. And, I can't complain that I'm the only podcast that's doing it. I kind of enjoy that part of it, but it is cool though. I mean, I'm doing what I love. I'm teaching people about the scanner radio hobby, but not only that, but I'm bringing other people on to tell their stories and to tell about what got them into it. I mean, Jonathan, I had you on early, like 2 years ago almost. Not only to talk about your background, but also to talk about Scanner Master. And then I had people talk about what got them in the hobby, or I'm trying to think of some other good examples. Like I had a scanner radio user who came on and he's blind, and we talked about how he programs his own scanners. A 325P2, he's programming it up by himself. He uses I think he might be using FreeScan because the author had changed at the time that who was developing it, so he could use his text to speech reader on it. So as he tabbed across, so he could at least tell what fields he was on. But learning, I mean, so it's not all about me teaching what I know about scanning, because I feel like there's always room to learn more, and there's always going to be that little part that I don't understand. And but to get other people on too, and give them a platform to speak about what brought them in the hobby and what they like. And again, too, like I was saying before, the person I had on, I'm going to have on next week, and I'll spill the beans a little bit on this one, is he was listening to the riots that was going on due to George Floyd, and it was a topic that I had addressed probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just what I would monitor if it would have happened here, and how I would set up my scanners. But he emailed me. He's like, I listened to this stuff, and this is what I heard, and it happened blocks from my home. So I said, you want to talk about it? So it was a really good conversation. And again, it was just basically how he had his radio set up and what he was listening to, and kind of how it made him feel too, because it was so real and so live to him, because not only was it happening blocks from his home, but his daughter lived blocks away also. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's just very interesting to have a podcast and a medium, and I mean, I've met a lot of great people doing it as well, and I see a lot of people on the side here that are popping in comments that I know from the podcast as well. I mean, I see Paul in here, and it was Romper Room, right? And Kenneth is in there as well. I saw Grant, who's down in Australia, checking in before, and then he says hi all the time too. So it's really cool to be a part of the community, and that's the other thing I'm trying to get out of this as well. I'm sure you guys are too, but it's nice. We've got Radio Reference. It's a big community, but you will have your audiences. I have my audiences, right? And Radio Reference has everybody, and it's nice to kind of build that tribe as well, and to build that community, and to build some a group that you can start bouncing ideas off of, and make like I said, make something with this as well. So it's really cool. I mean, I love that answer big time.
Well, we learn as much from our viewers as they learn from us sometimes, especially in the comments here, and doing what we do between the phones at Scanner Master doing these shows. We're learning a lot of stuff as well. So I'm sure you've learned a lot of things about scanners from your audience and your guests.
And that becomes part of a problem though for me, because I'm going to say that the wrong way. I already said it the wrong way. See, let's bring in the editor to take that out, right? But
yeah,
I record my stuff ahead of time, and I say what I say into the microphone, and it records it, and then I publish it. And then you get that one guy, wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, yeah, okay, you're right. I was wrong about that, and you have to go ahead and you have to readdress it the following week, or write it back and say, yes, I misspoke when I said it. So at least when you guys are live and on the fly, it's I think it's more forgivable. So there is that pressure to always make sure and to double check and triple check. And even though I've got bullet points on the screen as I'm recording a podcast, and I've got the items that I want to hit in certain orders, as you ad lib and you start embellishing on what it is that you want to talk about, every once in a while I may say the wrong thing. Yeah. I've done it on more than one occasion where I've given the podcast episode with the wrong number. It happens.
How structured is your podcast? I mean, do you do just kind of like an outline that kind of follow, or do you have it well scripted? Or
so what I usually do is, and I'm always playing around with the format, because I want to see what works, and I don't want to overdo certain things as well. And so I'm looking at some of the chats that are coming in as well.
Yeah.
It's just funny because I see these names and it's like, man, I know that guy too. Take a cough break as well. So it's like, so right now the structure is basically I'll come in and I'll introduce the podcast, and the first thing I do is I introduce to my Patreon supporters, right? And Patreon is we call it the PBS model, and it's a month-to-month donation or support of the program. And there's different levels of different tiers, the way I have mine structured. So what I have is I've got a $1 tier, a $3 tier, and a $5 tier. And the $1 tier is hey Phil, buy yourself a cup of coffee or get yourself a glass of iced tea so your throat doesn't dry out while you're doing a live interview. The $3 tier would get you the podcast early. So instead of waiting until Tuesday for the podcast to air, you get it early. So as soon as I'm done publishing it and getting it, queued up for the internet, everybody else gets it at the same. They get it at the same time. And then I've got my extra credit, and trying to stay within the school themes, right? And the extra credit people, they're the best because they spend the $5, but they get rewarded with that as well. They get the podcast early. They get stickers. They get Squelchy bumper stickers. And my Squelchy is my little cartoon character. Of course, I just moved my stickers. Where are they? Here's an example. So if you can, there we go. So that's what the stickers look like.
Sure.
So you get those, and we also do weekly. It's open to general, people, as we have a Zello net. We meet every Tuesday, but on the first Tuesday of the month, I do a live Q&A session on both Facebook and on YouTube. But my $5 month Patreon supporters, they can sit down in Zoom and see the same thing, but they get it without any delay, and they can ask me special questions. And then after I'm done with the Q&A session, then my $5 a month supporters, we get on Zoom and we have a 45-minute chat to an hour chat and swap information. So it's, again, it's the community thing, right? And so again, going back to the format, and I know I took a pretty big detour here yet, which I didn't mean to do, but so I introduced the podcast. I thank my Patreon supporters right off the bat, because that's important to me. And then we jump into the podcast, and it typically introduces the show. I speak for about 10 minutes maybe, or 15 minutes about whatever the topic is. We do a quick commercial break for the supporters, for to keep and pay the bills. And then we finish up. So I always drop that in the middle. But again, Patreon too, those $5 supporters, I take out that little break. So you never have to worry about that, that 2-minute pay the bills type of thing.
Yeah. So sort of like the Radio Reference premium membership, you don't have to watch the ads.
Exactly. And then I've got courses coming out too that I'm working on right now. In fact, I'm taking a day off from work on Friday. Don't tell my boss. And I'm sitting down, I'm clearing my desk, and I'm recording training sessions that I'll be selling as a course. And so that's natural progression of where we're going, right? I'm teaching everybody with the podcast, and now, okay, there's a hands-on thing that I can't do on the podcast that you guys are doing great on YouTube. And YouTube for me would be great, but I want to focus in other places right now, and I also don't want to step on your toes either. But again, I think if I did YouTube, it would just be 2-minute things like, this is how you do this, end of story, got to run, see you later. So again, this weekend I'm hoping to get a course and get it published by the end of the month. And again, $5 months, we get discounts off of those as well. So again, it's helping those who help me out and giving them. And again, I also have tutoring sessions, and they get discounts off of that as well. But now I'm really rambling. But yeah, you're right.
We haven't cut your mic off
when you support
yet,
the podcast. I know, I'm surprised. I'm waiting for it. I keep seeing the screen go big, and it's like, I keep talking now. I get a little aware that I'm speaking when you. It's like that's the cue to shut up. So that's the roadmap of how things on my end are progressing as far as with the podcast. And again, it starts with the podcast and it starts with a little content. And it's amazing. It's like when I started off and I was going to do the podcast, it's like, all right, let me see if I can get at least 6 months worth of things to talk about. Right. That was the first challenge.
Yeah.
Holy cow, 6 months, right? 26 episodes. What am I going to talk about? And you start filling the blanks. It's like, okay, cool. I can do this. And that's what, again, got me motivated to do the podcasting thing. And then it was, oh man, now I got to do another 6 months. And again, this whole time I'm recording, Saturday, I'm scripting it out. And again, I was actually writing out the entire podcast at that point. Now it's more or less, I'll write out some of it, but I really just ad-lib a lot of it as well. But I would record it on a Sunday, and then I edit it on a Sunday, and make the artwork on a Sunday, and it was an all-day event. And now I farm all that out. I basically record it, and then I go, okay, editor, here you go. Here's the podcast. Let me know when it's ready. Yeah. So again, that's why I need the support, and we have to pay the bills type of thing, because it's a couple $100 a month to have that luxury, and it works out very well. But
it allows you to have a life.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah. So it was definitely taking up. But again, so like I was saying, it was a week to week, and unfortunately, after 2.5 years, it's still Sunday night. It's like, I'm recording my podcast for next Tuesday, and off to the editor. So it was nice. At least I had you guys recorded, because you guys released today. I think we did the recording a month ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me a bit of a buffer room. And next week's again is a record an interview as well. So I have 2 weeks where I'm like, okay, good. But I know this Saturday and Sunday I'm right back in the recording, so I have something to give the editor, so it's ready for the following week. And that vicious cycle just, it continues.
At least it's great that you have topics to talk about all the time.
And I'm good now
to talk about.
And I'm good to the end of the year. I've got my calendar booked for the end of the year. And the other thing that helps me out too as well is part of the structure is that the first Tuesday, the first podcast of every month is a Q&A session. Mm-hmm. So I have what I call Ask Scanner School, where I ask people to either phone in. I have a voicemail number and also a speak pipe where they can leave me a voicemail, and then I'll answer their voicemail on a podcast. And for those that are mic shy, of course, I'll answer an email that came in as well. And I generally answer about 4 or 5 questions. And that helps with the schedule. That helps, eat 1 week basically of things.
Yeah.
And in October, I'll be two years of doing an Ask Scanner School segment. So, and I've got plenty of more questions. I can probably go a whole nother year. So,
do you have merch that you sell other than your stickers?
So, I do offer tutoring sessions. So if somebody needs a little bit extra help, I do that over a Zoom session. I book for about an hour at a time, and we do that. I was selling some merch, and I have it all upstairs, which is ridiculous. I was selling shirts and mugs and stuff like that, and they had corny phrases on them. And the problem was, is I had it on the website, but it broke another URL, so I had to take the merch down. But some of the stuff I had was, a shirt with the Squelchy logo, and the shirts say on it, I hear you, but I listen to my scanner, or I hear my wife, but I listen to my scanner. Stuff like that. And to be a little bit witty about it. So yeah, in the back of my mind is, okay, you got to get the store back up. And people were buying it. It was great. Yeah. And but you guys know from the scanners, but it is like, you get $2 off of every single one of them, and it's like, it's I don't know what company you're using, but yeah, it's
Jonathan,
it's
you
not
told me
like
I got 50 cents. What's this $2?
Where's my $2? Well, that's a great movie.
Yeah. So, I mean, we used Bombfire, which we had to reach their minimum of orders. We didn't have to. It wasn't like us buying anything and then having to send it out. They did all the shipping and everything. And this was just something that we tried. We just wanted to see, what would happen. We had a bunch of our audience, as you can see on the screen. You can actually see what we're seeing. And they were just, if you get T-shirts, we'd get them. So
yeah, and they did.
They did.
Yeah. It's the community, right? They want us to help.
And unfortunately, mine's in the washer. I'd have worn it tonight.
Well, at least you're wearing a shirt. I give you credit for that.
I do. I have to. My wife gets mad at me. Oh, by the way, talking about shirts. Sure, we're high. Yes. Save Ferris.
Save
right?
Ferris.
Yeah. So I know the reference. I actually where I worked at was where all that stuff was filmed. I worked on Ferris Bueller during the filming of that was filmed in my town. Along with a bunch of other movies, Home Alone and that. So
yes. He who was the director for that? But he loved
John Hughes. Yeah,
Hughes, right? He loved filming in Chicago downtown.
Well, he grew up in Norfolk, so he filmed a lot of movies. She's Having a Baby, Home Alone, a bunch of them. Uncle Buck
was it? Uncle, right. Yeah. But that's one thing I've noticed, though, is if shirts with words on the front when you do a live stream or entertaining, because every time you come on, you make sure you wear a different shirt, and it kind of brings somebody into the show. What's he going to wear this week? Yeah. And I've actually seen it where the person I listen to Pat Flynn. He's from Smart Passive Income, and he's kind of the one who got me onto this whole online thing, and so I've become a real mentor of his basically, and he did an online seminar for whatever it was he was selling, and we're watching this thing, and it would be him on camera, and then they would the camera would cut out, and it would be somebody else speaking, then he'd come on, then there was somebody else would come on, and Louis, what's up, man? Good to see you. And we start realizing, people start in the chat box going, hey, is Pat changing his shirt? And then you start noticing it, and then every time the camera would come back on to Pat, he'd have a different shirt on with a different saying on it. So it became part of this, like, it's these things that you do that while you're on camera that, and again, last time I was on, I had a shirt. It was it's a bug assault. It's an assault rifle for bugs. And what you do is you load the rifle up with salt, and it uses air to, it flavors your food and gets rid of the pests at the same time.
Hopefully it doesn't add protein to your food too. Right?
Well, I was gonna say ketchup not included, right? So, I make sure I always say those when somebody's drinking. By the way, And it's I had somebody who was on the live stream that was part of the Zoom. Paul, I saw you in here as well earlier, but Paul, he comes back on to the Zoom session and he holds up his his bug assault. So I'm like, yeah, there you go. So but yeah, I've got a little collection of shirts that I like to wear. But one of these days I'll wear my own shirts, but it's always cool to have something. So I always make sure when I go shopping, I'm like, all right, so I got my the next one. I'll spoil this one too. I got my tell them Large Marge sent you. So that's the next one. Gotta plan ahead. One of these days I'll put on my I'll put on the Scanner Guys shirt too. So only if you guys autograph it. I want a one of a kind.
Yeah.
There you
go. But yeah, I mean, is this Phil trying to get on the show here?
Dale,
sorry.
Yeah. Oh, you're a West Coast guy. Like I'm already on this show. What am
I? All right.
Well, it wouldn't be a Scanner Guys show without Dale being mentioned. So.
Dale, yeah, I mean, Dale is Dale is a loyal viewer, and every show that he's mentioned is his favorite show. So we just keep making a list of shows.
So far, right?
Yeah, so far. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that would be interesting. Rich and I changing our shirts every single time the camera winch was. That means I would have to be really paying attention to my camera work here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do not want to see me without a shirt on. It's like, and I'm not sure my camera's big enough for that. Yeah,
you wear like 10 shirts and you cut one off.
Yeah. Now the big question is: are you wearing pants?
Yes. Okay. No, I'm wearing shorts. It's hot here.
All right, that's good. That's fine.
Yes. I'm not.
That's why you never see me standing up anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
I'm wearing shorts as well. So being here in the Carolinas, certainly, it doesn't get cool here. And in Arizona, you cook like an easy thing.
Yeah, it's only.
But it's a different kind of heat.
Yeah, it's a dry heat, but it's like living in an oven. But you know what? After 5.5 years, I'm used to it. So, I went out to get the mail today. It's 112, and it's like, oh, it's kind of a nice day out today.
Yeah, I went out for the mail. It was 90. I went, nope, back in the house.
Yeah, yeah. At 90, we're out there with. Yeah, I'm out there with a wool coat, jeans, and gloves.
Here you got to cut your way through the humidity. You got to go swimming through the air. So
yeah, we want humidity. We jump in the swimming pool.
Yeah,
there you go.
What other kinds of social media are you using? I mean, are you active on Instagram and all that? I know you got your channels, but are you really active on them?
So it's difficult because there's so many places you can be that you have to really focus your attention on, right? So, I kind of rotate through them, and and I'm always aware. It's like, oh, today I haven't been on Facebook in the Facebook group in a couple of days. Let me go there, and then it's like, oh, I got to jump on Instagram. Let me go. Whoop. There you go. There's your questions. Pause. What's next?
I didn't mean to.
Well, you knew it was going to happen at least once tonight.
Yeah. But so I try, and again too, it's like I've got the alert set up on my phone. So if somebody chimes in on Instagram or on Facebook, and I do a lot of cheating, to be honest with you. What I do is I have a social media calendar, and what I do is, like with the podcast, I'll go in there and I'll schedule the post so that when the podcast goes out, I make sure those posts are there. Like when there's a certain, a holiday, I'll make sure those posts are ready. This way I don't have to forget to do it or leave a platform out. But I try to engage as much as possible on all social media channels, because again, it is a community. And just recently too, I use a lot of I like to go into Facebook, most of all in the Facebook group that I have, and I like to ask a lot of questions in there to get ideas for next upcoming podcast. So one of them was, what are the crazy scanner laws in your state, your county, or your city? It's impossible for me to Google search every little hamlet, not only in the United States, but also, right, we're global, right? We have to think outside of, the United States. Yeah. So, I jump into Facebook and I touch base in there. And then the other thing too is I touch base and I said, you know what else is out there for social media? And I said, well, Reddit's got it, its own community. And I tried posting a podcast episode in there, and they're like, "Get out of here! You can't self-promote," which I get. But it's like, well, how do you bring up a conversation at that point and not self-promote something?
Yeah.
But I asked the question. I said, well, who's on Discord? Because I keep hearing about Discord, and there's the Scanner Junkies have a Discord channel. So I joined in on there recently, and it's a great community. So I've been answering some questions in there and getting part of the conversation over on that side. So there's how do you get into every single social media platform and give everything your full attention? You can't. It's impossible to be everywhere at every time. But I try to at least mentally say, okay, I haven't checked in here recently, and unfortunately, even my own website, my own Scanner Radio website, every once in a while I go, oh man, it's been like 3 weeks. Let me go over there and make sure that nobody's asking me any questions over there. So yeah, it's crazy. I don't know how anybody does it. You gotta have to like hire somebody to do it, I think, to manage the social media at times.
Yeah, you can be, the Kim Kardashian of the scanner world with her social media managers. And
I mean,
my butt's not big enough.
I mean, you look at it alone for just Scanner Master and the Scanner Guys. I mean, how many channels we have? I mean, we actually way back when, Rich Barnett. Oh, we got to get on Pinterest. I'm like, okay, how am I going to make this work for Scanner Master? And then I slowly, I did it for a while, and then I slowly moved away from it. And then I just basically kept it to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And then with the Scanner Guys, we've got, all the popular, including Instagram. And it's just really, there's so many places you're going to be, it's just too much.
And it's funny you bring that up too, because I got sticky notes here, and it's things to do, right? And I actually hire help to help me publish the podcast with they're called virtual assistants, right? You can give them some work to do, and they'll help you out. And one of them on this list right here, believe it or not, is publish to Pinterest. So just to kind of see what's going on over there, because again, it's one of these things that you learn by experimenting with a lot of this stuff as well. And you're always out there going, is there somebody out there? And this is where I ask myself, it's like, is there somebody out there that wants to learn about scanners that I'm not reaching out to? Like, is there somebody somewhere that's having trouble that just needs a little bit of guidance, or just needs to learn a little bit more about, how trunking works, or they're overwhelmed by what's out there. And that's the part of it. That's why I do what I do, and I keep pushing, and I keep trying to find where the other, even the other Facebook communities are, or what the hashtags are on Instagram, or the hashtags. What's that? Three waters already?
Bottle count. Then we get the bottle count. We're up to 3.
Gotcha. And
get a shot of you drinking. The thing is we really need, Phil. I was talking about this with Rich. We really need a water bottle sponsor. Yeah. I just really feel like Rich drinks so much. He should be,
You got to have the
right there. Yeah. But we ought to get a little ticker on there, like on that TV show 24 where they had the time. Well, we should have a water bottle ticker.
I can arrange that.
She's going to come in one day as the Kool-Aid man, but just be full of water,
Yeah. No, right after the show's over, it's a beeline for the bathroom.
Yeah. That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
Yeah.
One more question. It's a wrap.
Why? Let me kill a mic for a minute and.
Well, you could step away. I've done it before.
Yeah,
I've done it during one show. I stepped away. What was it?
I didn't know he was gone because he left the camera on me and I wasn't watching. And then all of a sudden, hey, Jonathan.
Yeah. Well, you knew the one time that I left.
Yeah. The one time. Yeah.
The one time I left, because I didn't know when my STS 100 was. So I was like, oh, crap. Then I guess I went in the
see what your priorities are.
Oh, yeah. See Jonathan in panic mode.
I found it. I was like concerned because I recently went on a trip with it. I'm like, where, did I bring it back? Where is it? And then sure enough, it took me a second. I found it. We were
that too. I think we've all done that. Is it in this bag? Is it in the car? Is it still in the suitcase? Did I leave it at the hotel?
No.
Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah. Oh, geez. So are you a ham operator?
I am. I got licensed back in 92 or 94. I forget which one it is, but my original call sign was N2XUT. So it's an interesting story about that one. My dad, we said before, he was licensed, and he convinced my mom to get her license. And she got a great call. She's N2UZI. So, whenever she decides to give up the hobby, right, we'll give up her call sign, I'm sure. Yeah. There'll be people who want to jump on that one. And my brother and I were like, well, if she can do it, we can do it. And of course, I wasn't smart enough to pass the first time around, but I made sure the second time I went and took my test, I got my license. So I did that for a while. Did a lot of the packet radio stuff, and was part of, there was a junior operators group that was sponsored by a local club that we would go to, and all of us teenagers at the time that were licensed, we would do our thing. And then I ended up getting old enough to get married, I guess you could say, and jumped on the FCC website and changed my my address, and wouldn't you know, I get a brand new call sign in the mail. Dummy over here checked the wrong checkbox. So I'm like, well, I don't want a new call, and I had to pay my old call sign back. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to pay to get a call sign, what can I do? So I did a little bit of searching and found out that the call sign I looked for, which was W2LIE, which stands for the Long Island Expressway. And if you're from Long Island, you definitely know where that is, because you're on it all the time. And I ended up snagging that call. And once you know, somebody else decides he wants to grab the K2 call. So now there was a W2LIE floating around in the same circle as a K2LIE. And of course, that started being an issue because people would get us confused all the time. Yeah. So I would make sure that when I signed off the air, I'd always signed off as the original LIE, even though that was a lie, because there was somebody actually owned the call sign before me. Sure. And just as a bonus on that one was... on I set up some Google alerts with my amateur radio call sign just to see, and if people talk, badly about me or whatever. Just kidding. But I found on eBay somebody actually had an auction for a QSL card for W2LIE, the original, and it was really cool that that the guy gave his reception report on 40 meters. CW or sideband, whatever it was. So I emailed the guy that was doing the auction. I'm like, look, I've got that call sign now. I said, if you what would it take for you to take a ding on eBay and just fork it over now? So that's what we did. So I now have the original W2LIE's QSL card in my collection, which is really cool.
Oh, that's cool. So, well, as far as I know, nobody has ever had N9JIG before, because it was a original call sign on that. So. That's pretty cool. Hey, Josh, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, watching us on the big screen tonight.
Yep.
I feel bad for you.
Oh, boy.
Well, he's an Astros fan, so he's a glutton for punishment. So.
Oh, there you go.
So, are you active on him nowadays, or are you kind of backing off on that?
Yeah, I'm kind of backing off. I mean, I go big when I get into go into a hobby, which is crazy. So I kind of got involved with the local Aries group. They wanted me to build their website, which ended up making sure that I was the PIO, then I was the webmaster, then I got drafted into being the deputy chief radio officer for the Races group, and then I took over for the National Traffic Service chapter for Long Island. For Nassau County. So I got roped into that. And then I was part of the Skywarn program and helped out with that. So it became an awful quick. And then one day I said, you know what? I'm signing off the air. And I just dropped it. I'm still, though, a gateway administrator for the local D-Star NC2EC. So I still help out with that when it's needed. There you go. Cool. The bottom. And then, I still got the HF radio all set up. I enjoy doing that. And
I got two more
just
after
recently.
That, so.
Oh boy. roll yourself out of here. I actually just signed up for, which is really cool. There's a group called the Long Island CW Operators Group, and again, Long Island CW Operators started in Long Island, right? Now they're a global a global CW club that teaches you how to do Morse code, right? So not only is it like, oh well, just download this piece of software and check back in a week. No, they have on Zoom, they've got live training sessions. They've got how to increase your code speed, how to do head copy. They have kits they build. They build antenna kits. It's a whole big thing. And they've got a YL club, and they've got a kids club on there as well. And it's very amazing to see that. So I got into that. So I've actually got an old Drake pair, a T4 XB and an R4 XB, I guess is what it would be. So I'm getting that sanity checked right now. So that's my motivation to learn CW finally and get on the air and get that going. So right now, when I'm bored, I'll go through the dial and see what's going on. But and again too, I've got every once in a while the bug hits. So I got my new toy is an Stinko. I got the DJ MD5, which does DMR. So I picked one of these up just to play around. There you go. Do it with DMR and figure it'd be cool because it does. And not only does it do DMR, but it does, it does standard analog, but it does the two-tone paging decoding as well. And I think it transmits with that as well. So I figured, you know what? It's a sub $200 radio with all the accessories. So I said, let me play around with that, see how that works. So I still, keep a toe in the water. You
dabble a little bit. And do you have
not
time,
as much as I used to be.
And do you actually have time to sleep?
Well, that's a problem. So I don't have it sitting right here next to us, but yeah, once 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock rolls around, I pop melatonin because I do not shut off. It's part of me. I mean, I am a workaholic, so I will, as soon as we are done with this, whatever time this finishes up, I already know I've got to get this pager programmed and get this order out. And these orders came in today and I'll work on that till my goal is to be in bed by midnight, but it never happens. So yeah. And then it's up early the next morning, rinse, wash, repeat. And I barely sleep. So, and then it's a 9-to-5 job on top of all this too. So
crazy.
We had a question about that. So one of our viewers asked about that.
Yeah, I see Dave's asking that as well. So yeah, my 9-to-5 job, Dave, is I work for AT&T. I am an RF design engineer, which means if a cell site has to get touched, either built or modified, any type of change, it hits my desk from Montauk to Manhattan on Long Island. So that's a lot. It's a lot of cell sites. It keeps me very busy. I kind of graduated into it. So originally I came out of college. I went to college for a electrical engineering communications degree. And it was the first time that it was offered. Basically, it was new right at the time. I could either go to a school, I think in Colorado, or I can go to upstate New York. And I went to a small little farm town called Canton, New York. So if anybody's familiar with upstate New York, Route 111 can be seen between Watertown, where there's Fort Drum, and there's Plattsburgh, and each one's kind of like the last step before you get into Canada. And right smack in the middle is the Agricultural Technology. It was the ATC. It was the Agricultural Technological College, who had just changed their name to whatever it was that I had. They got rid of the agricultural part, but they still had a farm.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, we learned in a couple semesters what the people that were coming in after us were learning in two. I mean, that's how new the program was. And I took an internship between the years with PageNet, which was like the biggest paging company in the U.S. as a field tech. And after graduating, I worked there for a couple of years, and it was a great job. I mean, getting hands-on and learning, about all that stuff in the field was great. And I really, enjoyed that time being out there and getting in there. But after that, I took a job with AT&T. At the time, it was AT&T Wireless. They had just kind of spun everything off at that point when I came in there. And I was their "Can you hear me now" guy. That was the actual job. So I would drive around, and somewhere on a computer, I've got a picture of my dashboard, and it's got like 20 phones on the dashboard. And I'm not even. And I had 2 laptop computers next to me, and I mean, it was a porcupine of a vehicle. And I would drive around, and I would, listen, because the phones would tell you dropped call, handoff, and it would tell you what was going on. And that was my job, was to drive around and find dead spots, or when somebody would come. Yeah. When you called 611 and complained, "I've got no service at my house," I would get the ticket and show up. I mean, that's what the job was at the time. And then eventually I became an optimization engineer, which meant that instead of going out in the field and just doing that, I was actually tweaking the parameters in the cell sites and adding the handoffs. And it was cool because if I wanted to turn off a cell site, boom, I can turn off a cell site. That was what the job was. But now I'm having fun. I'm designing and building cell sites, and it's a lot of phone calls and working with other groups and within the company. It's but again, you learn how things work. I mean, I would never, without being in this industry, and there's a lot of stuff that translates from my 9-to-5 job that translates really well into scanning, and some of the stuff doesn't. But I mean, we don't talk about MIMO, right? Multiple in, multiple out. We have antenna patterns that multiple antenna paths, and then when the antennas they active and they follow you around. We don't do that when it comes to scanning, but a lot of the stuff out there is it does translate well. So
it's nice that you can leverage your work to your hobby and leverage your hobby to your work.
Yep. It's a good position to be in. I've been with the company now. It'll be 19 years in 2 weeks. So
cool.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. The original AT&T, or at least one of the operating companies, put me through school and put food on my table. My dad worked for Illinois Bell for 36 years. Part of it, he went to AT&T long lines for a few years and spent a lot of time in Jersey. And I didn't.
Me too, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that was part of everything too at that time. I mean, you always knew somebody who worked for the Bell, right? My grandfather worked for, was it 9X or whatever it was before that? But he retired, and they brought him back in because nobody knew how to work on the switches that were where he had to work. Yeah. So it's amazing.
My dad retired. He moved out to Arizona, and a year later they called him up and asked him to come back for a 6-month contract to finish up some project. So he lived with me for 6 months. They paid him a boatload of money, and he was happy to do it.
Yeah. Yep. So it's a good business to be in.
Yeah. What about other podcasts? Have you done any of your podcasts that are particularly memorable, or they stick out? Like, this was great.
Oof. Well, all right. So now I'm bringing up my podcast episode list because I'm going to offend somebody. We talked about before. We spoke with Pete DeVasto. He was on. He was the blind scanner radio operator that we talked about. And again, that one sticks in my mind because it just amazed me, like how you think about it. These scanners are so menu driven today.
Yeah.
And the programming, like you said, the Uniden product is like onions, right? You got to keep peeling it back. How is he programming this stuff up? And he's like, yeah, my wife, she can help me out, but why am I going to ask her? She's not into the hobby. And he takes great pride in learning how it works. And we were going through, well, how do you know what bank you're in? How do you know you don't accidentally turn it? He goes, well, it happens. He goes, I have to sit there and push buttons and figure it out. But I helped him into a 996 P2, and he was very happy with it because it was the same interface. So he was able to take everything over from his 325 and move it over. So he was very happy about that.
So he has to memorize all the menus. When the first menu is this, second menu is that, third one is that.
Yes. And what happens is, and he's got great feedback too. He's like, I really wish that when you would get to the bottom of the menu system and you came back to the top, it would double beep or it would tell you that, you were in a certain menu or you'd start over again. And you think a lot of, even like the Baofeng radios, right? They've got text, they have the voice circuitry in there, right? It'll tell you it'll tell you what menu you're in for $20 or $30 where that radio is. But a scanner that you're going to pay again $650 for can't tell you verbally what you're doing. I'm trying to think of what else we had talked about here on the podcast that was memorable. Jonathan, of course, you on session 31 all those years ago. There's a lot of them in here. Holy cow.
Any other names that you recognize? Yeah.
Some of the names you'd recognize. We got Joshua Higgins. You missed that one going back from last week.
Yeah.
And some of these I didn't put in with names either, but Dave Pasco from Live ATC, he came on to explain how aviation would work when you were at certain altitudes and what where you would be as far as part of the frequency plan and a lot of this stuff. And we followed up too with Eric Carlson from FlightAware to talk about ADSB and all other stuff as well. I'm trying to go through a list here too, and see there's so many in here. We went out on a little bit of a tangent. We talked. Now I'm going to insult somebody because I can't think of his name right away. But he runs a course called Surviving the Storm, and I thought that was a great tangent with scanner radios because for the whole prepper movement, right? And we talk about how he came on and talked about how his course was based on surviving a hurricane that would roll through, and we talked about how we could talk about tying in the scanner radios with prepping, and I've been on prepping podcasts to talk about just that, why you should have a scanner radio in your go kit and why you should be intimate with the scanner radio and know how it works. Like, don't just buy one and then expect to take it out of the box and program it up when the storm is barreling down. That's not the time to do it. And then who else we talked about here? We had Ben Hilburn on from GNU Radio. He came on, and we talked about that. And I guess I got to talk about that as well because he's got his forum that he runs. I guess it's the third week of every September. Chuck Geisey came on from National Communications Magazine. We had him on. Quite a bit. I mean, it's I don't want to leave anybody out, but I started not putting names next to the podcast episodes. So yeah, that kind of stinks.
Yeah. Do you have that memory that you can remember? Okay, what pod episode 51 was?
No, not at all. I only know Jonathan was on 31 because it showed up on the file. So
yeah, we got to do the same thing. We have a list that Jonathan and I keep together of all the shows that we've done, and then a list of possible future topics on there, so that wait a minute, we talked about that a few months ago.
But it doesn't hurt either to recycle content because you have to remember people they're going to come in, right? They come in today. Not everybody wants to go through a back catalog.
Yeah.
I mean, people may, right? I mean, but you have to remember that, okay, some of these people they're going to hear about this a second time. And I've done that. I've talked about simulcast, I think twice within the year, but because it's such a hot topic and every time I talk about it, I figure out another way to explain it. Like I was running a tutoring session with somebody and we were talking about the East Bay regional radio system, I guess, out, in San Diego area, I guess it was. San Francisco, right. And it's a simulcast site, right? Simulcast site. When you look at radio reference, though, he sees 4 sites or 5 sites, east, west, central, north, south, whatever, right? And he goes, well, these are the 4 or 5 sites. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Each one of these has another cluster of sites within them that all transmit at the same time. And then it dawned on me, I've been teaching people about simulcast, talking about sites, and I'm using the word 2 different ways now. So now I have it asterisked. Okay, let's talk about a site within a site within a site when I talk about simulcast. So now
I do the same thing. I tell them, there's 4 towers in that simulcast site.
Yeah, and we were doing that. We were going through radio reference. We would click on the call sign. I'm like, look, here's your east site, east site, and look at all these transmitter locations. And then we look at the next call sign, then the next call sign. He goes, holy cow, there's like 24 of them. I'm like, and they all transmit at the exact same time. And you're wondering why, your scanner can't, make heads or tails out of what's going on unless you take the antenna off, Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of topics that come up that just come up organically, just based on feedback. And you guys, I mean, you guys see that at the same time too. And then there's also times too where you just scratch your head and go, what am I going to talk about next week? And again, that's when I jump on social media and I say to the group, hey, what's something that I haven't talked about yet that is on your mind? And it's great to get that feedback too from the listeners.
Well, we'll be talking to people like this, and we'll see in the comments somebody say, hey, I got a question about this, or hey, here's a topic for sometime, and the one we did last week, or the one we're doing next week, is based specifically on what somebody asked for last week.
Yeah, that's for sure. And if you're just joining us, we're interviewing Phil from the Scanner School, and as always,
it's just Scanner School.
Yeah,
I'll let you butcher everything this week.
And we're brought to you by Scanner Master this evening.
I feel like the interrupting cow.
So this the podcast has been going on for, you said, 2.5 years now?
Just over 2.5 years. So January 2nd, 2018 is when we launched the first 2 episodes.
And how long do you think it's going to go for?
Oof, it depends how much I can talk about. So I love to. I mean, it's weird because you set these certain goals, right? Like I said, I could do 6 months. Great, I can launch a podcast. Oh, I can make a year. That's great. Then it's like, episode 100 is going to be a big one. I can make a 100. So now you guys are on this week. It's 138. So now my next milestone now is 200, right? And then I'm thinking, well, how many more weeks now is 200? I'm going to do this until either I am unable to speak, I think, at this point, or podcasting somehow goes away. But like I said, I enjoy it so much. I like just being able to help people. And again, it's allowing me now to make courses, which is really what I want to do as well. So I did an introduction to SDR, right, where I took 10 people on at the time Skype, and we went through, like, within 5 weeks I had them with nothing, and then we had a whole SDR setup. So the course I'm working on, which I have been dangling a carrot for my audiences, for way too long, and I feel so rotten because you get those questions. When's the SDR class coming out? When's the SDR class coming out? When's the SDR class coming out? And this is what I'm doing this Friday now. I'm finally sitting down, and it takes time because you have to sit there, you have to outline it, and you have to figure out, okay, not only am I going to talk about this, but I'm going to have the camera set up this way, and this is going to be a keyboard shot, this is going to be a USB port shot, this is going to be just me talking. And I've spent late nights just going through the platform and just learning how that works and how I can stage it, because there's no sense in recording content if you're going to have to redo the content to fit the platform. Right. And so training courses are next, and my goal is to hit pretty much every scanner out there and make a training course on how to use it. And even too, like Butel software. I mean, that would be, I think, a YouTube series though, but just how to get the scanner out of the box and hooked up to Butel so you can load in one scan bank, and just a quick 5-minute, like, down and dirty. And that falls under the whole school thing. I mean, it's not a podcast thing, but it would. So there's a lot more that I want to do with this besides just podcasting. But again, too, it's like I'm looking here at what Bob is typing in. Monitoring Long Island sounds was is what he types in here. And I know I'm going out of order here, but I remember when I before I got my amateur radio license, that there was a net that was on the 2-meter radio here, and it was called Monitoring the Long Island Sounds. A play on words, because there's the Long Island Sound, which is the body of water between Long Island and Connecticut. And we have somebody somewhere has got tapes of that stuff, and I found that on the internet. Somebody had it, and I really wish I went through there and downloaded all those episodes, because it makes great listening. And I could hear, probably at some point, I could probably hear 12-year-old me checking into the net.
So all this stuff, is it still fun, or has it become work?
Some days it's work. I'm not going to lie. Some days to me, it's like, oh man, I got to record the podcast today. and it's an all day thing, because if you give yourself all day to do something, you're going to take all day to do something.
Yeah.
And those are the days where it's like, are we done yet? And there's nights where it's like it's Monday night and I'm finally publishing the podcast at midnight for a 4 a.m. release. Those days it's work.
Yeah.
Editing it became work. So I outsourced it. Now I don't have to worry about it. It's now a lot more fun because I don't have that part hanging over my head. But it is fun. I love, like I said, I love being able to explain things and to teach people, and that's with it. To me, that's the enjoyment of it. That's, I mean, and you guys know, I mean, you guys do it as well. I mean, it's just, there's nothing feels as good as being able to say to somebody, look, you know, this is how it works, and don't sweat it. I mean, you know, to tell somebody you're overthinking trunking, it's really not that difficult. It's just really just, you know, one channel that's the conductor saying you go here and you go there, and when you see them go, oh, okay. I mean, it feels good to be able to explain that to somebody.
Yeah, and we get the same thing. People call us and they just don't understand the concept. And then, you know, you try to find a way to explain the concept. And once they understand the concept, everything just falls into place for them.
Yep.
So,
so yeah, it is fun.
The question came up, does AT&T still have cows? And
yes.
Yes. So, yeah, it's not that they have a dairy farm. Cows are cells on wheels is what the cow stands for. And it's still a big thing on cell companies.
Oh, huge. And yeah, it's one of those things. When I got out of optimization, I was so happy I'd never have to deal with another cow again. Generally you roll cows for disasters, right? Because you have to roll a cell site where either a cell site once existed or something big is happening.
Yeah, like
the Trade Center bombing or Trade Center attacks, right? Every company rolled cows out to there because you needed infrastructure there. We have the air show at Jones Beach. We rolled cows out to that because you have a capacity issue. The Belmont Stakes, right? Triple Crown, who knows? Roll a cow for that. So we have that. We also have towers on wheels, which is just the crank up tower that goes along with it. But now we also have Colts as well, which is cells on light trucks. And so we have basically a farm which has the cows, the Colts, and the towers on wheels as well. So
well, you'll have to come up with a good acronym for towers on wheels to, you know.
It's toes.
Toes.
It's crazy.
Well, cows have 2 toes, right? So
yeah. But we even have this. They have the satellite trucks now as well, and now with FirstNet, they have their own special things.
Yeah.
So yeah. So now I'm roped back into the whole cow thing, because when a cow gets launched, it has to get designed, and you know.
Yeah.
So it's got to fall on somebody to do that, and I'm the guy.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It's got to be. There's always one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. There's got to be a guy for everything. So.
Exactly.
One of our audience members asked, how did you get into the pager business? Like, how did that come
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great one. You know how sometimes things just accidentally lead into other things? So that's what. So I'll give you the really, really long story right now. I'm kidding. So I run my own local scanner radio website just for Long Island, and it's w2lie.net. Which I thought was a great name for a website until I realized that nobody understands what w2lie.net actually means. I found out really fast it's a really bad name for a scanner radio website. And I started selling programming services because people, no offense to you guys, but you know, some people are comfortable shipping their stuff in, and some people just want it done locally. And that's what I would do, is I would, you know, meet somebody and just program their radios for them. And it really like blew up when Suffolk County, New York rebanded, because all of a sudden everybody needed scanners, reprogrammed again. And I was programming a radio for somebody. He goes, "Oh, have you ever heard of this unication device? It's really cool that it can be a scanner, but it's a pager because it holds 64 memory channels on it." And I'm thinking, "Oh, I'll look into it." So a couple months come and go, and I said, what the heck? Let me apply over there and see what happens. The worst they can do is say no, you know.
Yeah.
And once you know it, at that point, they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll take you on as a dealer." Okay. So at that point, then it's a scramble, because now holy crap, now I have to S Corp and I have to do this and I've got to do that and I got to file New York State taxes and everything else that comes along with that. But so what ended up happening is I started selling unification pagers, and it was one of these deals where I was like, all right, if I sell a couple here and there, then great, I'll make some money on the side and it'll help support the hobby. Because that was the goal going into all this. The goal going into this was I want to just earn enough money so that if I want to buy the next scanner, I've got the pocket money to do so. And that's all this was initially. And you see now how it's grown, right? And now all of a sudden, now I'm getting more sales and more leads, and I'm selling to fire districts, multiples at times, out of state, in state, and it started getting big. So then when I spun off, I became East Coast Pagers. And I have on my desk right now, I've got a pager here. I got a pager here. I got 3 pagers over there. I have 125 pagers in boxes on the other side of the room. They're all over the place. And you guys know how warehouses work, but imagine doing this all in your basement.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's like, holy crap, I'm out of inventory today on these because somebody comes in the middle of the night and they wipe you out. And it's like, oh no. So so I accidentally got into the paging business, and it worked out really well because now I had a hobby that was something I enjoyed doing that started to become work that eventually morphed into something different. And this is why when it's on the podcast, it says it's sponsored by East Coast Pagers, because East Coast Pagers earns the money and Scanner School is the vampire that takes the money right back out again. So, so without the paging business, there would never be the ability for me to do the podcast. So, and I love it though, because a lot of people say, well, why would I ever need a pager? And it's like, let me explain that to you, because as a scanner radio user, I love having pagers because, you have to know everything, right? When you're in the hobby. Why did the fire truck go down the street? I don't know. I missed the call. Oh, let me run to my pager and hit the button and it'll tell me. But now too, with the pagers, with you guys know too, right? With the unification product, where it worked really well in simulcast before the SDS product was launched. They do phase 2 now. They don't do DMR trunking and all that stuff, but it really fits well with the scanner radio hobby as well. So it kind of, one leads into the other, and it's leading right back into it again. So it was just by pure accident that I got into the paging business, but that's why I don't sleep at night, because I spend a lot of my time working on that so that I can do the podcasting stuff, which is also why the training course is 1.5 years in progress. So
I totally get that. There's a lot, to have on your plate and to carry a lot of hats. Especially, I think, even with us trying to, trying to coordinate our life and then trying to come up with content with this, for the show each and every week. This was kind of like a break for me, because I didn't have to work on a slideshow. A lot of times, Rich and I will split the slideshows in half. Sometimes I'll work on, quite a bit of it, or Rich will pick up more than I usually do. But it really, it is a labor of love. And, sometimes it can be a lot of work.
Totally is.
But
we work a lot more hours than we get paid for this. So
yeah, that's for sure. I really, at the end of the day, I totally, sometimes I'm like, oh, tonight I gotta, after work, I gotta get ready for the show. And then once I'm in this situation, I'm excited to be here. It's certainly well worth it.
I've been there too. I've been where, not to cut you off again, interrupting Cal. The same thing. It's like, oh, it's the first Tuesday of the month. It's my Q&A session when I jump on YouTube and Facebook, and it's like, should I cancel it tonight? And then you set up, and it's like, oh, and then it's like, you're right into it, and you realize, I'm so happy I didn't let tonight go, because there was so many people here that were asking questions, and again, it takes you, it puts you right back into it. Like I was able to help somebody out tonight. So,
there's a night a few months back where I really just felt like crap, and I didn't want to do anything. It was Wednesday afternoon, and I finished up with the day job, and I was like, oh man, I got to be on. We got the show on, and I'm thinking I'm gonna have to call Jonathan and cancel and stuff like that. And then I figured, okay, I'm just gonna stick it out, and and then the show started, and all of a sudden I forgot that I wasn't feeling good, and it was just like, wow. And then I felt great now.
Yeah, I mean,
it's amazing.
There was times when I remember, when I was on Boston radio, and I sounded like crap, and I was working an overnight shift at one of the Boston stations. And so the lady that I relieved, she did the romance show. So I sounded like crap. I came in there, I sounded all congested and everything. And then she was driving home in her car, and then I ended up doing one of my breaks, and she called the hotline after, and she said, "How the hell did you do that? You sounded like you weren't sick for that 2 minutes that you talked. How the hell did you do that?" I don't know, because I figure I got to make it through the 2.5, 3 minutes that I have to talk and just do it. I mean, it's just something you just suck it up and just do it. But yeah, certainly, I really love this because, on your end with the podcast, you develop a family out there. I mean, that's basically your loyal people that watch or listen every single week. And this is something that they're looking forward to each and every week. What are the guys going to talk about on the scanner guys? What is Phil going to talk about in the scanner school? It's something that we look forward to each and every week.
Yep. And even like I said too, I run on every Tuesday evening. I do a net on Zello, and again, you get a lot of the same regular guys that check in. It's an hour, just talk shop or ask questions, and again, you can always see the same people coming in. Again, like I said, we saw Grant in from Australia, and he checks in every week as well on the Zello net. So usually about a half hour late, thanks to the time zone difference, but he's always in.
Well, we got quite a few international customers. In fact, I talked to two guys from Australia today and one guy from New Zealand on the phone. And one of them was a regular, one of them was the first time I remember talking to him. And the guy from New Zealand I've talked to for a couple times before. And we get guys from Bermuda. We got a guy from Guam, even though it's part of the States, but it's a million miles out.
Yep.
It's and I talked to 3 or 4 different guys from Canada, and yesterday I talked to a guy from the UK and a guy from Germany within about 15 minutes of each other.
Wow.
So it's cool.
It's pretty awesome, that we've reached, like you said earlier in the discussion, it's just not the United States for the scanner hobby. It's worldwide. One of the things that I like to ask you is, when you're able to sit down and relax and turn the scanner on, what do you typically monitor?
I like to keep it quiet, to be honest with you. So if I'm monitoring anything on the scanner, it's typically just my local fire department, really, just to hear the runs they have and just to hear what's going on. That's really where I leave it, to be, because you listen, a lot of times you listen to it and you hear everything, right? And it's 4 radios on, and it's this one, it's that one. And I'm at a point now where, like I said, I have radios that are dedicated to just certain things. So I have, the one radio just stays, again, in my local fire department. Then I have one that just listens, it's a pager because I just want the tone outs, and it's a countywide tone out channel. I don't want to hear the whole county, but it's the next department over. So I listen to their calls and those kinds of things. My local police department, they went encrypted many years ago, so we don't listen to them. But now the big thing now is the adjacent county is gone. They're moving on to a new P25 system. So now that's kind of like re-energizing me to listen to them now, to find out where they're going, to remap everything out as well. So what's up, Joe? How you doing? Joe's over there from Wisconsin, and I actually owe him an email. So Joe, your email will probably come tomorrow. One more?
I was telling Jonathan to go up one more.
Yeah, that was. It's
last week was rough, huh?
Yeah, last week was a long week for me. I'm working on a new project, and it just, I was just exhausted. It was one of those nights. I was kind of happy that Rich kept talking and talking and talking, because I was just.
You look like you were going to nod off.
One time in the year that we've been doing this, and he's happy that I'm babbling.
Well, the thing was, the only thing that didn't make me happy is, I was exhausted, and and we had all types of errors on the screen. I'm just reading it, just as is, and then like, oh, that ain't right.
He sent me text. Wrap it up.
No, I didn't send you any text. I was just happy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we kind of.
It's funny. I'm looking at the text too. I see Kent's in there too. He says Phil's Islanders beat the Capitals today. That's why I got the hat on today. So I was watching that game. So that's right, we beat you. So huge hockey fan. I'm very happy that stuff. But again, going back to what I listen to is it's being on Long Island is great because we got marine traffic out here, so that keeps us entertained. I love the air show. To me, that's one of the best times to own a scanner. So that's one of the biggest things I listen to. And then we also had the tribute stuff that flew over, the tributes to healthcare workers. Mm-hmm. And the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds flew over together. And it was cool to kind of hear them on the scanner and hear where they were kind of going and watch them on ADSB. And we couldn't really follow them, I think, but we were following the news cop that was flying around. And, you hear them getting stronger. Oh, I can hear them now in the handheld, and then you need to go outside and they fly right overhead in formation. So, but I've been keeping it pretty quiet lately. So I think I burnt myself out really on listening to everything. So,
yeah,
I feel the same.
I've cut down on a lot of my individual listening, and a lot of my radios are now on just one channel.
What I don't like about here in the Carolinas is regional dispatching. And the issue is, everybody's being dispatched on one talk group. And that's been something that I've had a difficult time. And I've reprogrammed these radios multiple times and I still can't get it where I want it. I'm used to being from Massachusetts, Southeastern Mass, and each agency has its own frequency. And, I was just, and that's the same way, Phil, same exact way. There's some nights I want to listen to the scanner, but I don't want to hear city XYZ and everything else. I just want to hear my local calls that are going on in my community and maybe some in the neighboring. And with regional dispatching, I can't be selective with that because it's all going over one channel and then it's being assigned one of the various ops channels and that rotates.
Right.
So I still haven't found a comfort level as of yet. So a lot of times what I'm doing here is monitoring just the railroads. When I just
you're a huge railroad fan, so yeah. That.
No, he's not huge, but he's chunky.
Thanks. Are you on the
he's a big railroad fan.
Are you on the fifth bottle yet?
Yes, almost. Almost.
It gave me a hard time. I just wanted to use this.
When they do the regional dispatching by you, Jonathan, do they tone it out first, or they just come on the talk group and just give the dispatch? How does that work?
They just go right over the radio and they dispatch it. And then I've been trying to figure out, just the communication, because there's no indicator of who is what. From where I'm at, it's just, you have to know the vehicle numbers. There's no really, telling who's where. And then I notice for the county that I'm in, the local police don't stay in the local town. They'll go way out of town. So there's one, I'm in a small little town that's got 3,000 people in it. We have 2 restaurants. We actually had one for a little bit. So I went in, one of the restaurants is a Mexican restaurant, really good food. And I pulled in there last week and there was the county police and the local police. Now, mind you, this is a small town. They have 2 units on at night. Both units were at the restaurant having dinner. And then we had at least 4 county patrol units having dinner there as well. I said, anybody could just go hauling
Yeah.
Calling butt through town, and nobody's going to see nothing because all the police are saturated in one spot.
Everybody's there.
Everybody's there.
How many traffic lights you got in town? That was always a big joke upstate by us. Does your traffic light blink, or is it,
Let's think. We've got the major one that's over the railroad tracks, and then we have the one that's by Route 29, and then we have a flashing light at 2 intersections. So yeah, I mean it's small.
Yeah. I grew up in a small town too, but we had at least 3 traffic signals when I was little. So
yeah. I mean,
they lit them by candle.
Well, no, but they did have a guy that went out and lit them every night.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, they lit them by candle. Yeah.
I mean,
gas power.
They grabbed the dinosaur's tail, right, when the Flintstones, and he changed.
Man, it's crazy, like I've still, that's why I've been mostly listening to railroads down here because I can't get, like I have in front of me, I have 4 radios there, 2 radios here. And then I turn these on and it's all regional dispatching and I'm getting slammed with so many things at once. I'm going overload.
So then how do the volunteers then understand when they have a call? I mean, they're obviously not going to listen to all the noise in the background. There's got to be some sort of way they're being alerted though to tell them that they have a call.
They must be. I know they have simulcast on their old frequencies, so I'm wondering if they're toning out on there and they have a pager.
It could be.
I'm monitoring.
A lot of departments will do that.
I'm monitoring, of course, the trunking end of things, just because it's. But yeah, they do simulcast on the EMS. They have an EMS frequency, and they also have the fire frequency. So they must be using pagers for that aspect. When they're doing it there, but on the trunking, it sounds like just a whole bunch of,
Well, if they're doing the dispatch on trunk, they could be putting the codes out in the P25 data stream, so you would never hear it on the radio, even if it's alerting stations that way. So,
yeah, it could be the page thing as well. But again, too, a lot of departments too, which surprised me, is they still rely on the POGSAG paging. The old doctors and drug dealer pagers, right? And I sometimes you look in the radio reference wiki, when you go to the database page and you look in the wiki, you'll actually find somebody will actually have the cap codes and the frequency and the baud rate and everything else that you would need to program up an old POGSAG pager. And those are cool because they're alpha tagged. So you get the whole call shows up on it. And Swissphone makes these little hurricane pagers, and they have text to speech on them. So as the alpha tag comes in, the page will actually read that back to you. So it's really cool that just to think that some departments still, because again, they're putting out like 500 watts on a mountaintop. I mean, they cover like gangbusters.
Well, it works and it's paid for. So why spend a lot of money to replace something that's working just fine for them?
Yep.
So. I mean, when I was on the fire department, we had Minotaur pagers, and then we had Miniature 2 pagers, and they worked great. And when they went to the trunking system, we hated it because it didn't work half the time.
Right.
So, well, you want to move on to Romper Room here?
Yeah, we probably should. We're now, 1 hour and 40 minutes in, so we should.
Goes fast, huh, guys?
Yeah, it does. It does go very fast. What do we got in there, Rich, for some questions?
Well, we got a couple here. Just wanted to give one shout out to Don from Bermuda. He had a problem with his T-shirt. When we got that straightened out for him, I'm glad we got that straightened out. Phil's looking to buy an SDS 100, so give us a call. We'll be glad to help you out. And Steve checked in and wanted to say thanks for me helping him out today. I spent a little while on the phone, but I think he actually called twice, and we got him all straightened out. And this is a great question for you, Phil. Unication apparently released some new firmware today. Do you know anything about it?
I know a little bit about it. Yeah. Okay. So
it
was a nice little update. So I haven't really played around it too much yet. I looked at the release notes really quickly. One of the interesting things that it brings to it, though, and I haven't played around it yet, is the ability to, or it looks to be, the ability to actually assign the UID to an alpha tag. So, on the unification page where it says like 2 and then the radio ID and then, the talk group ID. It looks like you can start mapping that information out there. It also has, though, a hold feature on the trunking and also a nuisance delete on the trunking.
Ooh.
So yes, so they're getting more involved, more of a feedback of what the scanner radio user wants.
Yeah.
And it doesn't yet do all the other stuff that the beta testers are testing out with the multiple trunking systems and all this other stuff. But it's really cool to see that they're keeping to the core of the product, which is the fire paging side.
Yeah.
But they're enhancing it, just enough to kind of like make it just that much better for those of us who are in the scanner radio hobby as well. So,
well, I'm sure they were kind of gobsmacked when the scanner guys figured out that these were great simulcast receivers, and they probably weren't prepared for the scanner hobbyists to start buying these things up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So yeah, the new firmware. You need the new PPS, which is you can grab that over there on the left hand side of the screen, and that's the G2, G3, G4, G5 PPS. Make sure you load that in. There's also the message backup software. Just download that and make sure you got any messages you want to save, just in case you lose them on part of the process. And then you've got the firmware downloader there.
Cool.
So I was told it was going to be an online GUI thing, but as a dealer, I have access to the actual file that I can push and sideload into the pager.
Yeah.
I also heard too, originally you can only put one key in the pager if you had AES, but now they've opened it up more to DES encryption. And I think you can put more than one key in there, because you have the ability now, when there's another button there that allows you to assign a key to a feature as well. So I don't have any ability to play around with that, but when I was peeing around last night. But one thing I can tell you, if you've got multiple copies of PPS on your computer, and I went through this last night, which was kicking my butt, is when you put the new version of PPS on your computer, it's going to say, hey, do you want to import all your old profiles? Of course you do. So you click yes. I noticed that it only imported up to July of 2019. And I'm like, well, I have like ones I just did yesterday. Where are they? Mm-hmm. So I was uninstalling, reinstalling, et cetera, et cetera. So if anybody gets into an issue where you're missing your previous versions files and configurations, if you go to C, Program Data, and then go into Unication PPS, you'll find your previous version has a bunch of subfolders in there. Just copy those over to the new version of PPS, and everything will transfer right over there nicely. So
cool.
I know this question's
I know this question is going to pop up when you mention the encryption. We get calls all the time about people wanting scanners to get past encryption. And if you get a unication, you can, but it has to be programmed by the system owner with the system key. And chances are your local police department's not going to allow that. So that's intended for actual system users, not scanner hobbyists. So, yeah. Phil asks, what's the big difference between a 436 and an SDS 100? Jonathan?
436 and an SDS 100. Well, the simulcast, the SDS is able to handle simulcast better. The other thing too is there's a lot more bells and features on the SDS. With that display that we talk about a lot, that's got so much that you can put on that screen. You can customize it. The SDS is certainly, they do cost a little bit more, but they're well worth it. But if you're in an area where there's not simulcast and you don't have the budget for an SDS, the 436 is still a phenomenal scanner.
I had a guy yesterday, day before, who was looking at between the 436 and the SDS, and the one feature on the SDS that sold him was the ability to charge the radio while the radio was on, which you can't do on a 436, but you can do on an SDS. He said, sold.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I mean,
$150 extra. That's what he wanted.
I mean, the other thing with the SDS is, you have the battery pack.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot to it. It's a great scanner. When you do invest into it, if you're going to be carrying it with you, I'd recommend getting a carrying case. You want to keep that radio looking new.
Yep. And Scanner Master's got 3 different style carry cases for the SDS. We've got the nylon, the hard leather, and my personal favorite, the soft leather.
And that's what I have here, the soft leather.
Yeah. And you notice it's got the ventilation holes on it.
Which was something that we talked about over the phone. And sure enough, we had that done, putting in the ventilation holes. I mean, that's the thing. All these cases that we have at Scanner Master are made right here in the United States. And we have a lot of input into the case design as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All righty. So Dale reminds us that Mobile Vision used to use the BC350. We were talking about that earlier for the receiver for their VHS-based mobile video system. So we had Mobile Vision VHS recorder dash cams in our squad cars, and he was right. They had scanners basically built into them. These old Uniden 350 scanners, and you would program it for the frequency of the wireless mic. 171.045, and there was a little circuit in there that had recorded the or decoded the identifier. I still have a couple of those mics. They work great, and I still have a couple of them out in my garage. But they used a Bearcat 350 scanner for that. All right, Kevin says, "Hey Phil, Jonathan, and Rich, this is awesome that we're all doing this together. Phil helped them out last night to monitor the Northern Lightning Air National Guard military exercise, and there was a lot of traffic on that. So you want to talk about that exercise there a little bit, Phil?"
Just a little bit, yeah. So there's, what's the name of the airfield up there in Wisconsin? But there's a joint exercise that's going on. What was that?
Was that Volk? VOLK?
Yes.
Volk
Yep.
Field? Yeah.
Yep, that's it. And so Tuesday evenings we hold the Zello net, and the question came up, what frequencies do we listen to? And of course that's like, how many radios do you have? Because you can be anywhere in the airband. So we kind of talked about what we would if I was coming in blind to the situation, how would I just walk into it not knowing anything? And so we walked through, what search ranges he should put into his scanner. And then we ended up going into, just doing some Google searches and finding other things out. And we eventually ended up on the website, millaircom. Was it Mill?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we went through the receive logs, right? Where people submit what they're hearing. And we found that people were reporting in the Millair channels that were being used as part of the exercise. So, we made a small little list and worked through that last night on our Zello net. So that was really cool.
Cool. John is in Newark, I assume Newark, New Jersey, and he's got big simulcast issues. And I'm trying to go back to see which scanner he is. I think he's got a 996. So, and he's got big simulcast issues. And we talk about this a lot. Obviously, the SDS is really the way to go, or a unication. But if you don't have the money or ability to get one of those, there are some things you can do to help reduce or mitigate the simulcast interference. Typically, if you reduce the effectiveness of your antenna, one of the suggestions was put a paperclip in there instead of the antenna. Be surprised how well that works sometimes. And you're trying to force that radio to pick up one tower of a simulcast site over any of the others. A directional antenna pointed at a specific tower or away from towers to, again, try to force it to hear just one tower only. You can sometimes play with the P25 settings, but I've never found that to be particularly effective. Any other hints on using his existing scanner on a simulcast?
Beam antennas, to be able to do a beam antenna aim right at the particular site that you're looking to monitor. We've even seen during our show where we had asked the scanner guys and we displayed one of the stupid scanner tricks. Somebody placed the beam antenna at ground level and aimed it in the direction of the site. I mean, just get creative.
It worked.
You want to get creative with it. Typically with simulcast, you're always thinking, well, if I put the antenna higher up and, do the best type of thing, it's not going to work. You're going to do the extreme opposite.
That's usually my first tip. I always say, Take everything you know about scanner radios since the day you started with it and forget all about it, because what I'm going to tell you right now is going to, you're not going to understand, you're not going to process it, because I'm going to tell you, don't hook up to your outdoor antenna and don't get as high as you can and don't put any gain on there. And they're like, why? I'm like, because you don't want to hear anything. That's why.
Yeah.
Well, I tell people that it's not really overloading, but it's overloading, you know?
Yeah. You don't want to.
I always say it's. Yeah, I always equate it to is like the old analog TV days, right? Remember when you were like watching the news or the football game and you got that ghosting image, and to me it paints a very good visual picture. A lot of people can those of us who are old enough to remember over the air broadcast TV, and it's like, okay, well, your TV back in the day couldn't line the picture back up again. Now you're doing it like you were saying, in previous episodes, with zeros and ones. And when a 0 and a 1 are supposed to be here and they show up over here, the scanner goes, what do you want me to do with this information? It doesn't compute.
Yeah. So, I explain to people that you've got multiple towers transmitting at the same time, at the same frequency. They're all zeros and ones, and the zeros from this tower cancel out the ones from that tower and just causes the radio to go, whoa.
Yeah, it doesn't know what to do. It's just basically the radio's trying to throw up at this point because it's getting overloaded with so much stuff.
And some radios are a lot better than other radios. Some radios will work, completely horrible in a simulcast environment. And I'm not talking about even like the SDS 100 working really well. I'm talking about other radios that weren't designed for simulcast. You can make them work, but the other ones are just like.
I've got tried it out. 996s, or actually got 6 996s now in my rack, and one of them on the upper left works really well on the local simulcast system.
Show off.
The other ones, they're all hooked up to the same antenna, and but that one particular radio works really well on the local simulcast system, and the other ones don't. I have no idea why, but it does. I'm not complaining.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it depends on when the radio is manufactured. I've noticed that too. I've had, 2 radios of the same exact model, same exact maker, and for whatever reason, one radio works better on certain bands and the other radio doesn't.
I bought a couple of years ago. A few years ago, I did some work for Rich, and instead of paying me money, I said, send me half a dozen BCT 15Xs. And I got them, and 2 of them had serial numbers that were one off. They were adjacent, consecutive serial numbers. And of those 6 radios, at that time, I found one was really good on VHF, one was really good on UHF, one was really good on low band. There was still some low band at the time. And one of them was deaf as a post. And it was just variances between the individual radios. So I think that's the same thing going on with those 996s. Blackhawk, one of our viewers, Blackhawk, says that we should give any of our guests a Scanner Guys T-shirt.
Yeah, unfortunately,
if we had them.
Yeah, if we had them, that's for sure. There was basically what was printed, what was ordered. Unfortunately, we don't have a huge budget here to have a plethora of all the sizes, available.
Yeah, and we even paid for our own shirts. So
yeah, we had to pay for our own shirts.
So that wasn't an on-demand thing. That was you actually bought like a box of them and shipped them out. Is that what you did?
No,
it's an on-demand.
On demand,
yeah. Okay.
So, but he had to buy. Jonathan had to buy his shirt. I had to buy my shirt.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And you got what, a 4XL there, Jonathan, or was it a 5XL?
No, I got the 3 because I like it loose. How about you, Mister?
2.
I like XL. I like it loose. That's why.
Yeah. Mine is a little bit tighter on me. So
yeah. Okay, buddy.
But I've got the height. That's my problem. Is I get that with those shirts and I look like Baby Huey.
Yeah.
Got this big belly and the shirt only goes halfway down. That's the problem with being 6'4". I got to buy stuff that's tall. Otherwise, like I say, I look like a cartoon character.
Just a little too fluffy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we got Fluffy's not so bad. So it's muscles, not fat. It's muscle. Corey is out in the South Dakota, and this is Bike Week in Sturgis. I don't know if you're not a bike. You don't ride a motorcycle, do you? No,
not me.
I used to ride. It's been years, but I used to ride, and I actually did go to Sturgis once, and I rode all the way. And I'll never do that again. That was just too crazy. But apparently, they don't care about COVID-19 out there either. So from what I've seen, but he says that the scanner traffic out there is amazing. So it's. I didn't bring a scanner with me when I went because, like I said, I rode 4 days on a motorcycle to get there. I don't have any room for a scanner. Tim asks, is Whistler still in business?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
As of the moment, yes.
Yeah. We get this question quite a bit. Whistler, right after they Uniden came out with the SDS series, Whistler announced the TRX 100 and 200, and that they were in early engineering, which is something unusual because, well, at least it's different. Uniden doesn't announce their radios until they're darn near ready to sell them. Where Whistler announced this one long before they were going to be anywhere available, but apparently they had too many problems trying to get the engineering done on them properly, so they eventually canceled that project. I hope that they come up with something good. I'm mostly a Uniden guy myself, but I do have some Whistler products, and they do have some benefits. Like you were talking earlier, the sound on them is much better at times. But yep, there you go. I got mine over there.
Yeah, over there.
Yeah, and even if you're not a Whistler user or a Uniden user, the competition helps make the other guy better. So I'm sure Uniden hopes that Whistler sticks around because it's going to make them better, and vice versa. If you only have one vendor or one manufacturer, that stifles innovation. Ken asks, says he might have to get a. He was responding to John's question about the simulcast, and he was suggesting get either Unication or an SDS 100 or a Yagi antenna. So, those are the three best ways to mitigate simulcast interference. Another good question for you, Phil. New York PD, are they going to go encrypted?
That's one. Actually, I answered that question the other night too on a Discord server, and every week there's a new rumor about what NYPD is going to end up doing. Will they end up encrypting? Will they end up going on a trunk system? I mean, I explained it this way to the person who asked it the last time, and I don't know. I'm a scanner radio guy, but think about it. They have UHF T-band, right? 482s, 483s, right? They're up there. Some of stuff's down in 470. But their whole system was built around the fact that you could be anywhere in the city and use your portable radio to talk to dispatch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing the way they built this thing out. And when SOD moved off the current channel because they were going to do work on the repeater system and the voters on that, everybody's like, oh, when they come back on, they're going to be encrypted. It's going to be P25. This is the end of SOD. We're never going to be able to hear them again. What happened? SOD moved back on, still an analog. Citywide 4, okay, they have P25 encryption. Command's got P25, conventional encryption. The DOIT, which is Department of Information Technology in New York City that runs basically the trunk systems out there, they're building out a P25 phase 2 system, but they already have an 800 and a 400 system as well. Will PD go over to there? I don't know. I don't think they would, because right now, again, too, you can key the mic, and I think, dispatch can hear you. There's, FDNY uses a voter system where, dispatch can hear the mobiles, and then they can repeat out so everybody else can hear it, or they can turn off that mixer so that, the mobiles don't go back out on the repeater. I don't know how well all that would work in a trunking environment for NYPD because they are so big. Can you imagine, PD keying up and you have everybody who's on foot has a radio? Yeah. Can you imagine, them piling up to get a trunk channel? I don't know if that would ever work. And I don't know if, based on the fact that they are built around everybody with a portable radio to be able to talk to dispatch would even work well in a digital environment. I know that they have Vertex, standard radios now, and they're upgrading, but
they could keep an eye on what's going on in Chicago. Chicago's in the process of building a P25 system for police and fire. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And I guess if New York can kind of watch what's going on in Chicago and see what happens and learn from that. Because there's going to be mistakes along the way.
Yeah, and the thing that worries me though about NYPD is the fact you have a lot of people who jump on with their bootleg radios and will say things, and it happens quite often. And there's been times where there's been officers who were shot and unfortunately murdered in their vehicles, and their first reaction is this is a prank because it happens, so often that way. And even recently with all the protesting marches, somebody comes on. And it's somebody who is, maliciously keying up on PD's frequencies, saying certain things, and the news agencies run with that as if PD is keying up and saying that. As a listener, I know it's not PD because, first of all, the audio sounds way different. Secondly, there's no MDC ID on the end of the channel, at the end of the transmission. So it didn't come from one of the PD's radios. But that's enough for for TMZ and other agencies to run with that story and that soundbite to say, hey, look, NYPD is saying this. And then they have to do a cleanup control. So that wouldn't be an issue if they were either encrypted or on a trunk system either. So,
and hopefully if they do something like that, go into an unencrypted trunk system for at least for dispatch would probably be the ideal thing to do. So,
but again, if we want to go down this route really quick too, it's like I always say, I discussed it with you guys too in the podcast. It's like, all right, what happens if they go encrypted? And I love to use this one because it kind of like, it kind of puts that light bulb on sometimes. If your favorite TV show goes off the air, right? Does that mean there's nothing left to watch on TV? And if your favorite magazine goes out of publication, does that mean there's no more magazines left in the world to read? No, you're going to find another magazine to fill the void. So if your favorite agency goes encrypted, I understand it's a heartbreak. I understand because my PD went encrypted, but there's other things to listen to on the scanner. And again, Jonathan, railroad, because if a car hits the train, the railroad's going to tell you about it. And if somebody's drowning, the Coast Guard or the patrols will know about it. And if somebody gets hit by a car, if the fire and the EMS aren't encrypted, they'll know about it. So I don't know why there's a domestic dispute going on down the block. I don't know why the police car is running down, but there's still other things to listen to. So
the next question, Chris asks about the Zello channel. Your Zello channel, is that something that you can let people know how to find that?
Sure. You can go to scannerschool.com/Zello. I say that's like hello, but with a Z in front of it. And what it is, it's a weekly net that we use the application Zello for. It's a smartphone app, works on Android and iPhone, and even works on your Windows computer. And we hold a net, basically. It's a voice only for an hour a night. We answer questions, kind of the same thing that you guys are doing right now. And it's a community-based thing. And while the voice is going on, there's also a chat group that goes off on the side. And it's been working well. I mean, we've been doing it every week now for the last couple of months, except the first Tuesday of the month where I jump on and do my Q&A session on Facebook and YouTube. So it's it's definitely a community-building type of event for Scanner School.
Cool. And the last question I got, so far, it might be a couple more after that. SoCal Dude asks if that was a Home Patrol on my desk. So, I've got a Home Patrol 1 and a Home Patrol 2 on my desk. Home Patrol 1 here, and then you can't really see it there. There's a Home Patrol 2 there as well. So,
the Home Patrol.
When they first came out with the Home Patrols, I was on the beta team for them. And I hated them. I thought I just did not like them. And at the time, the database part wasn't as fleshed out as it is now. But the Home Patrol really wasn't designed for me. It was designed for Joe Sixpack who wants to listen to a scanner but not have to worry about all the technical stuff. And then they grew on me. And it wasn't until I moved out here that I realized how good they really were. So I do love my Home Patrols now. So I have them on all the time. And
I'm talking about the biggest waster when it comes to Home Patrol. I have one on in the kitchen that listens to one analog conventional frequency.
Yeah.
That's all I use it for.
Yeah, I have one. I use it for scanning, one for local aviation and one for the railroad. So I'm not even using the full database, but it's a good receiver, So
Yeah,
it definitely
well.
is. I mean, I've used the Home Patrol as a mobile radio at one point. I've used it in the house. This is one of the ones that I have in the bedroom. And I loved, the radio. I can auto set it to shut off on its own, which you can do with most of all the unit and database scanners, but it's the easiest to do with the touch screen on the Home Patrol. Speaking of that, I know we all three of us have spouses. Phil, how does your spouse hate the scanner portion of your life?
So I actually did a whole podcast episode on this one, like a Valentine's one a couple of weeks ago. I guess a year ago, I actually had her on the podcast and asked her that same type of question. Pretty cringeworthy listening to it now, but she knew what she was getting herself into when she married me. She knows where the power button is on all of them. She knows how to lower the volume on them. Even the one that's I leave in the kitchen, the Home Patrol, that just monitors one channel. She'll walk up to it and bing, 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 bing. And I'll say, what happened? And she goes, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, she's the one that goes, where are they going? And I'm like, I don't know. You turned the radio off. So she, so she tolerates it being on as long as she doesn't have to hear it. So that's, again, where I came up with the idea for the shirt that says, I hear my wife, I listen to my scanner, because,
Yeah. Well, see, I've got the ultimate scanner guy's wife, and she's deaf. So she doesn't complain about when I leave the volume on. She complains about the lights. So if I want to leave the scanners on, I got to make sure I turn the lights off on the scanners. That's why I'm trying to get rid of my BCT 15s and replace them with X's, because it's a lot easier to turn the dial lights off.
The buttons. Now, if you plugged in that third wire, though, that amber wire, and you flipped a switch through 12 volts with that one, would it trigger so that you would dim all the lights on there? Because that was that ignition sense, right? Wasn't that third line was for? Yeah,
that was for the lighting control. So yeah, that might work. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good idea. I have to try that.
Boom.
Cool. I learned something. I never even thought about that.
No. I mean, you plug it in, the whole rack blows up.
Poof. Any speculation on what unit and scanner product line is going to look like in the future now that Paul's gone? Paul, not Phil. For real, Paul. As you all know, Paul Opitz is the scanner guru for Uniden, and he passed away.
Have they announced anybody to replace?
No, not yet. I think they're kind of doing it by committee right now. You guys got any speculation on what the future generation of scanners are going to look like?
I really wouldn't be surprised if we see a Home Patrol 3 with some of the SDS technology, because it's small, and with the other digital formats. I think, because people love that touchscreen display, they love the size of it. That would be a cool thing, and with the SDS technology, it doesn't take up very much space.
Yeah.
It would definitely work in that. I mean, I know we've begged for a remote head. I don't know if we'll eventually get one. I mean, that's the thing that we've talked about.
Well, if you take a look inside an SDS 200, there's a lot of empty space there. There's no reason why they couldn't put that radio into a much smaller thing and then just use an outboard speaker. That's been my thing. To take a scanner, make it basically into a remote head, and you can take the audio amp and the speaker out, and there's a jack on the back that you plug the speaker into, and another one for the power cord, and now you've got your scanner here. The speaker goes over here, and you plug it into the power cord.
Yeah, I mean you could. The 436 is a perfect example of that. The square, not the square, but the rectangular body, being able to do that as a remote head. Go ahead, Phil.
I was going to say you can almost do that though if you ran a tablet PC that ran Windows and you throw ProScan on there, you could just connect directly to the Ethernet port in the front of the SDS 100 And then you can have like ProScan running on a tablet, Windows-based tablet PC that would run that. But I actually did a podcast episode at the end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020 where I said, where do I see the next decade in scanning? Because I figure it's a great time, right? It's the start of the next decade. So my theory was we'll see more products, obviously, from Uniden. We'll either see the resurrection or the fall of Whistler. I mean, that one, we don't know about that one. My money, though, is riding on a third unknown party coming into the game and blowing everybody out of the water. Because if you think about it, and this was before Unication came out with the beta software for the pagers. You have all these SDRs, and you have applications like DSD Plus and Unitrunker, and people are actually using Raspberry Pis and running OP25 on them, and now you've got the call ingest thing with Broadcastify. I wouldn't put it past anybody to 3D print a case, interface in a screen, and run an SDR or two inside of a small case, and would run their own hybrid software that ties into New Radio or OP25 or something that's already on the market. And now all of a sudden, you just have to you buy their kit, and you can either assemble your own scanner or you just add in the SDR dongle. And I would think it would be a fraction of the price because it would run it'd be Linux based. And, that's just where I imagine things going. Right. Somebody's going to come in and they're going to self-engineer this thing, or they're going to crowd or what is it? Will you crowdsource?
Crowdfunding.
Yeah. And, I think that's going to be what's going to happen in the next couple of years. I think somebody's going to come in here, and there's going to be a very budget-friendly kind of, not as great and polished as the SDS product line, but just clunky enough that it would turn people off, but just cool enough that a lot of the guys are going to just jump in there and say, hey, you know what? I don't care if it's ugly, but I mean, look, the Radio Shack Pro 94, 95s, the bricks, they sold.
Yep.
And, I think we'll see that. That's where my money's right on. And if somebody comes up and develops that, I would probably back it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Could you see somebody starting this and then another company swooping in and making it pretty? That's
I think so, but I think a lot of it would stay. I think a lot of it would stay part of the homebrew thing. I mean, a lot of ham radios would homebrew their stuff. There's a lot of ham radio kits that are out there that are homebrewed, and I really think that I think that it's possible. I mean, it's totally possible to take a Windows-based computer and turn it into a a radio that works in trunking, simulcast, and everything else. All somebody's got to do is just shrink it down and make it handheld and put an interface on it that somebody can use on the fly, and you got a radio.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, cool. I mean, I really like that Unication is still staying in the realm of the scanner business. I mean, I love out of the radios that I use a lot when I'm out and about, I'm using the Unication G5 because it's so simple to use. I have it all programmed up to all the various areas that are around me, and it's so simple. When I was in Massachusetts, I didn't use it a lot because there wasn't a lot of digital trunking. The only time I would go in is Rhode Island, with their statewide trunking system. Massachusetts really didn't have any digital trunking at the time, and I really see them, just the things that you told us tonight about the firmware. I see them, dipping in their toe a little bit more into it. I just saw a comment by Kenneth, saying, that they could end up dipping their toe a little bit more into the scanner business.
Yep. And I can't really say much more based on where I sit with Unication. Yeah. So not that I have inside knowledge,
in
but
that position, but yeah, they'd be a great company to do that. They've got the background, they've got the equipment, and they've got the reputation already.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you look at it way back when GRE was at its height, competing against Uniden, you had a product lineup that was equal. You had the three tiers: the digital, the trunking, and then the basic. And then Uniden had the same thing. Then the other thing, when I started at Scanner Master, it was, which is better? Do I go Uniden? Do I go Whistler? And then the other thing, the other thing was price point. Then I had, Whistler coming in a little bit less on price point. So then, that was another way of selling it, was at this point right now, we don't have that healthy competition in between the Whistler and the Uniden models right now, because, we don't have the equal tiered radios. You don't have the 996 and the 325 equivalent model on the Whistler end of things. That would be your 1040 and your 1065, but they don't do phase 2. So it's just such a crazy time. I loved it way back when I started at Scanner Master. We had really good competition, in between the two, not only technology wise, it was price wise, and
that's what. Go ahead.
They kept each other on their toes pretty much.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing that I was going to say too about Whistler is, like, you look at what they brought in, right? It was just GRE's models that they've rebranded and put new silkscreen on the front of it and called it their own model. And I understand, okay, maybe development was harder than they expected when it came to simulcast. So they had to give up development on it. But it shouldn't be that difficult, or you would hope it would be that difficult, to take an existing scanner and just upgrade it into a phase 2 type of environment. I mean, I don't know the logistics of putting TDMA together as far as, but you would think that, okay, well, let's just take the existing body and tweak it like they did from, the what was it? The 1090, was it 1098 that became the TRX1, or it was something that morphed into, their version of it.
1080, 1088, TRX1, TRX.
Right. I mean, you look at the 996. There's been the T, the XT, and the P2. I mean, they morphed that radio, so many times.
Yeah. And then it's basically, you get the 15 and the 15X are the analog versions of that same radio. And then the 536 is the zip code programmable version of at least the same case size. So they've gotten so much out of that form factor.
Right. That was the cool thing though too about the 536 was you had the people who were the scanner radio users, like that wanted the keypad and everything else. Mm-hmm. Like you said, you got Joe's 6-pack that wanted just the home patrol. And then people were saying, well, why can't they do both? And then Uniden comes out and they have the 436 and the 536 that do both.
Yep.
I mean, that's
you take a 996. Yeah, you take a 996 and it marries a home patrol, and their child is the 536.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that we still have the 996 P2 and the 325 P2, because there's still a demand for it. People love, just being able to build it themselves. They love the memory structure. That's why I kind of hope that when Whistler finally decides, to upgrade the 1040 and the 1065, they don't move completely away from it and go from database. I just really wish that they would make those radios so they're still around, maybe slightly different form factor, but still the type of programming that some of our audience actually demands for.
Yeah. A WS 1050 and WS 1075. You heard it here first. So I think we're good. We're in bottle number 6, and I
can see in the corner that they're taking bets now how long it's going to be before you pop.
So what we'll do is I guess we'll wrap up things for now. I mean, we are 2 hours and 20 minutes. So Phil, here's all your social media. So of course your website, Scanner School on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Now, for people that are not familiar with podcasts, or they may already have the apps downloaded on their phone, where does your podcast appear?
So my podcast appears pretty much everywhere you can get a podcast. So that's in Apple's podcast software, Google's podcasting platform, Spotify, Stitcher. You can even ask your little Amazon. I can't say it here because she'll wake up and say something to me. You can get on those devices as well. And if that part of life isn't something that you enjoy or understand how it works, you can always go to scannerschool.com, and on the front page will be the latest episode right there in the right-hand corner. And you can go ahead and you click on the button and it'll play the latest episode for you just right there on the website. So I try to make it easier for you because I understand, you have people that are very tech savvy and you have people who aren't. And when I went out there to launch this, I wanted to make sure that, again, I wanted to make sure it was easy for everybody to get the information that so they could all learn. So yeah, you can find us, wherever podcasts are played. Just look for Scanner School, and we're right there. Comes out every Tuesday.
And what's next Tuesday's show? What is the topic?
So next Tuesday, in fact, I'll give you, just for your audience, I'll let you know the next 2 weeks. So next Tuesday's show is going to be an interview with, oh boy, what was his first name? Brad. Brad was living too close for comfort with the George Floyd protests. So we went through about 5 days worth of listening in about 45 minutes as to what type of activity he heard, what he was listening to, the stuff that wasn't being reported, and what it was like to listen to all of this unfold real time on his scanner. And it was a really, really great conversation. And then the week after that, we're going to talk about V scanners in the Whistler and GRE line and the Radio Shack line, because I've noticed that I've gravitate personally towards Uniden stuff. I've been really avoiding the Whistler folks. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about object-oriented scanning. Next week, we're going to talk about, or week of that, we'll talk about V scanners and how they work and how you set them up and the cases for that. Then after that, we go back into an Ask Scanner School session. So I gave you a bonus one. I gave you the next 3 weeks.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's wrap up a little bit more. This is my normal spiel here. So if you have any questions or we weren't able to get your question this evening, this is the way to be able to reach us. Any questions that you may have or you need help ordering a scanner, you can email us at support@scannermaster.com. Give us a call at 1-800-722-6637. We're open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you can always shop Scannermaster 24/7 at scannermaster.com. And we want to remind you of next week's broadcast, which is Wednesday the 19th. We're going to rank state by state scanner monitoring. So it's going to be an interesting topic. This was a topic that one of our viewers suggested. So we've already started working on the slideshow. Rich has already dived into that. We're going to continue building on that. So that's going to be next week, August the 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, right here on the YouTube channel. And we're always looking for your scanner tricks and your shack photos. Send them on over to us, thescannerguys@gmail.com. That's thescannerguys@gmail.com. And if you're a rail fan, make sure you check out my blog, Train Aficionado, on all the popular social media there, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also we're on YouTube as well. And don't forget, follow, like, and subscribe to our sponsor, Scanner Master, on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, don't forget about the Scanner Guys social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight on this show. And we want to have you back as a regular guest.
I would love to come back. I would love anytime you want me back here. I'd love to be. And again, vice versa too. If there's anything you want to bring up to the podcast, I know, Rich, we talked maybe about some of the stuff on your side, and also Jonathan, some other stuff that you guys both come back either together or independently. I'd love to have you guys both back. So, it was a fun evening. It went fast. It went really fast.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the other thing,
2.5 hours, it feels like we just started it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too is, we would love to learn a little bit more about the Unication radios, although we don't sell them anymore at Scanner Master.
Okay.
It would be something, that we could collaborate a slideshow together. It's very easy for us to share it amongst us. And then you can kind of help us build the slideshow and go over some of those people that are that know about the unification radio, but they're just a little nervous about the technology.
Mhm.
You know, because as you know, it's not a traditional scanner programming wise, so it's a little bit
Not
more,
even close.
uh,
Although
you
they
know,
did make it easier because they do allow you to import the talk groups and the trunk frequencies from the CVS export from radio reference. So
Ooh.
that does save you some time on programming.
Cool.
Yeah, that may be something that we may want to have you back, and just to be able to show us, what that looks like, because that may actually help a lot of people out there. They own the radio, and they're probably like, "Oh my god!" Like I know, Rich, you thought it was a beast. I had fun doing it because I just, I love trunking, and I love, being able to, really get in there with the programming. And I was like, boy, once I figured it out, this is a lot of fun. But it takes a little bit to to program it.
Right. So, all right. Well, hey, thanks again, Phil. We appreciate your spending the evening with us, and I'm sure all our watchers appreciate your spending the time with us as well.
Yeah.
I mean, again, thank you so much for having me on. It was a fast 2.5 hours. I really appreciate being here, and I saw a lot of names I know on the side that came rolling through. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep cutting you guys off to say hi to everybody, but it was good to see a lot of people that I recognized coming in on the chats as well. It's really cool.
Well, we have a few minutes. You want to give East Coast Paging a plug right now?
Oh, sure. I'd love to. EastCoastPagers.com is my online e-commerce store. So it's where I sell Unication, Swiss phone, pagers, and I also have the Apollo line, but nothing for Apollo is really listed on the website. And if you check the website out now, take a good study, hard look at it, because in a couple of weeks, it's all going to change. I've actually been working on it for the last 3 or 4 months, doing the entire website over again. And I didn't know it was so involved to do that. I've built websites before, and this was the first one I outsourced to another company. And it's unbelievable what they've got coming to the website. So if you need a pager for personal use or your department or anything like that, I do quotes. We do department demos on pagers. We could do online, introductions and seminars. And I do actually too, part of the training courses is courses on how the Unication and Swiss phone pages work. So eventually we'll have on-demand demos on that stuff as well. So yeah, that's what sources, that's what pays for everything else. So eastcoastpagers.com.
Cool. Yeah, we definitely got to keep supporting that because, it keeps the scanner school alive and well. I mean, that's the revenue, out of the revenue stream that keeps you going to the other portion of your hobby, podcasting.
Yep. And I'll say too, if anybody orders from East Coast Pages, they got brand new magnets that came out really horrible. So get your limited edition screw up magnets when you place your order. They look like tugboats.
Oh, that's a reason to place your order.
And I got over 1,000 of them too. So once they're gone, they're gone.
And they'll never be gone.
Yeah, I know.
So what we'll do right now is we'll close out the show. Phil, you just stay right there, and we'll be.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week right here on the Scanner Guys. So thank you so much. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
I'm Phil Lichtenberger.
And have a great week, and we'll catch you again next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.